This is the D6 generation with your hosts, Craig Gallant.
Oh, if you're getting any compensation, it's not charity.
Russ Wakeland. You put me on a boat with frickin' dragons attacking me and whatnot? Now we're talking Angelo Lombardi in the third chair.
I'm not sure my D20s have 20s on them. I've never seen one.
With contributions from Total Fangirl.
Vampires do not sparkle.
And our loyal listeners.
One game is very like another till the D6G reviews it, brother.
Welcome to another edition of Rapid Fire, the roundtable discussion of all things gaming, coming at with the speed of a fast and furious card game of massive armies, potent spells, and minor court officials. This edition is brought to you by Mr. W Games. Who's for dinner? A fast, fun Take That card game is now on Kickstarter. Pre-order there or find out more at MrWGames.com. Today our panelists are Russ Wormwood Wakeland and itinerant gamer Angelo Lombardi. Let's begin. Issue number 1. In the social sciences, a social group has been defined as two or more humans who interact with one another, share similar characteristics, and collectively have a sense of unity. Although there is no best way to define a social group, of the many types of groups that exist, some of the most common are peer groups, or groups with members of approximately the same age, social status, and interests. Generally, people are relatively equal in terms of power when they interact with peers, and cliques, basically groups of people that have many of the same interests commonly found in high school and or college settings. Oftentimes they have a name and rules for themselves because they're just that coolio. And of course clubs, which usually require one to apply to become a member. Such clubs may be dedicated to particular activities, sports clubs for example. Question. Within the social sciences, the failure or dispersal of a group is generally attributed to one of two causes. Other than a failure of the leader of a group to provide a clear purpose and drive, what is the primary cause of the dissolution of a group? The refinery Russ.
Lack of funds.
The anthologist Angelo.
They ran out of pizza.
Interesting and defining moments, both of those, but unfortunately you're both wrong! Curiously, the most common reason for a social group to collapse is actually too many members. Talk about being a victim of your own success. Issue number 2. No matter how powerful or oppressive you get, everyone eventually needs a secret lair where they can let down their hair, take off the high-necked tunic, and relax with a drink among friends between nefarious plots and ignominious defeats. Whether it's 15-foot-high walls, dreadful reputations, or all the latest and greatest amenities, all of the most powerful men and women want a secret lair. Question. Reported to be the biggest spy base in the world, housing multinational forces and run by the U.S. NSA, in what country is the Menwith Hill complex, complete with a Death Star-looking dome that houses some of the most important intelligence personnel in the world? Area 51 Angelo.
Argentina.
Robbers Cave Russ.
I don't know, but it must be a volcano.
Unfortunately, it is not. We are referring to the RAF Menwith Hill secret base in Yorkshire, England. What an odd place for the most secret place on Earth. Issue number 3. The term summoning refers to calling together, convening, or to request to appear, send for. In the law, it refers to the act of ordering one to appear in court through the issuance of a summons. None of these, of course, are nearly as interesting as the magical or demonic aspects of summoning, also known as invocation. When you conduct that sort of summoning, well, then you're cooking with gas, or damned souls, whichever works best for you. Question. On a scale of 1 to 10, with 1 being butterfly kisses on a warm afternoon, and 10 being the eternal digestion of your soul in the fetid gut of a greater demon, how dangerous, according to a Satanist, is it to summon a goetic demon? Ronway Russ.
12.5.
Apollyon Angelo.
In the spirit of National Pi Day 3.14.
Nice.
Oh, very well. Unfortunately, you are both wrong! Any novice summoner knows that goetic demons are entirely friendly to humans, according to Satanists. And summoning any one of the 72 creatures is completely safe. So that would be, I would say somewhere in the vicinity of a 7 or 8. Issue number 4. Like so much else in the world, apparently we have the French to thank for the word dungeon, as the word originally comes from the Old French donjon, which in its earliest usage meant a keep, the main tower of a castle, which formed the final defensive position to which the garrison could retreat when outer fortifications were overcome. It wasn't until the 19th century, however, during the Enlightenment, when dungeons first entered literature as the modern image of a dank underground prison, haven of evil masterminds and twisted villainous monsters. Question. What is the technical and probably French term for a dungeon cell that can only be accessed through a door in the ceiling? A Bacchinator Angelo.
I'm not sure, but it's interesting that the French have a place to retreat to. Sorry, just aside there.
Send your email to Angelo at revolving from Russ.
Le Pit de Despair.
It's very close. It is the oubliette, of course, which for some reason I always thought meant the bathroom, which would be a very unfortunate misunderstanding where I had to travel back in time to the Middle Ages. Probably only once, though. Well, that's all I've got for this night. Thank you. That's it for this episode. Thanks for listening, and good night.
This episode of the D6 Generation is brought to you by GameSalute.com. Check out gaming news or find out what the new hotness is on Springboard. GameSalute.com.
And by Battle Foam, protecting your army so you don't have to.
And the War Store, bringing the war to your door since 1999, and that is for a decade or more.
And by Audible. Try the service, get a free book, and support the show. All by visiting audibletrial.com/D6G.
And by Geek Nation Tours. Rise up and join the Geek Nation, touring the world at geeknationtours.com.
And Wargame Soldiers and Strategy magazine, making historical wargaming less scary and more fun.
Hello!
Hello.
I'm on strike.
Craig's on strike. And welcome to episode 99 of the D6 Generation.
That just has a feeling of impending doom, doesn't it? 99.
We're
99.
We're podcasting like it's episode 99.
99.
I'm Russ Wicklund.
I'm Crinkalan.
I'm Angelo Lombardi, and my show notes are upside down. I thought we were doing episode 66.
Ooh, nice. Angelo,
God, that was so long ago.
Angelo, thanks so much for coming on the show. We really appreciate it.
Yes, of course, you all remember Angelo, the itinerant gamer, the guy who wanders around the world gaming, finding gaming groups, and bringing them to his view of gaming.
And Mr. La Quinta as well. See, look at that.
Well,
Hey, we did.
whatever. You say tomato, I say itinerant gamer of
Well,
wonder.
indeed. I mean, it's amazing, Angelo, how you find so much time to game whilst being a big muckety-muck there at a major hotel chain.
Well, the middle stuff.
He's only the guy in charge of the operations of the whole company. Don't, make it seem like he's a big muckety-muck. Jeez.
Right. So
He's the first guy on the table of organization that actually works. No big deal.
Oh, I'm going to bring this sound bit into the office on Monday.
nice. So speaking of time to game, that's one of our big topics today. We're going to be talking about how we find time to game being mature / old fart gamers.
There's a short answer to that, which is you don't.
Right. Well, a lot of people don't. And we get a lot of emails about how we do. So we're going to talk about that. And having Angelo on we thought was a great opportunity because Angelo does find time to game despite the fact that he's quite the little jet-setting, world-traveling executive officer there.
I think Mr. Colossus just made a height joke, Angelo.
Yeah, I heard that. But I've got something planned for later in the show to bring parody back to the D6G.
Wow. Okay, good.
You're gonna put him in his place. This isn't gonna be one of those Star Wars balancing the scales. Forget it.
Where were you going with that?
I got nothing. I have a whole bunch, but it just derailed, and now it's all over the side of the railroad tracks.
I was going to say, Craig, the conductor called. He wants his train back.
Yeah.
I'm being proactive. I'm trying to come up with my favorite moment for episode 100, and I thought I would just try to create it in episode 99.
Nice.
That would make it easier to find.
It would.
So, also, guys, do you have your plaid hats on?
I do not.
Mine is firmly on my head. It's a little plaid fedora there. What do you think?
I think
Looks good.
it looks ludicrous.
So we're going to be talking about, we're going to do a double, as they say in France, a double review.
Double.
I do have a question. Where did you get such a large plaid hat?
It's already starting.
So it begins.
I can see it's going to be that kind of episode.
Magic.
Is it too late to get Rafe back? All right.
Magic.
So we're going to be talking about two great Plaid Hat games. One of them, of course, is Summoner Wars, which we've been talking about a lot on the show but never reviewed. And since it is a short game, easy to explain, we're also going to throw in there another Plaid Hat game, Dungeon Run, which is new hotness. Right? So
two for one in episode 99.
A twofer, right.
There you go. We're pushing the envelope, baby.
And we should, because this is a palindrome episode.
Oh, nicely done.
How do you like that? All right, so
pretty pathetic to call 99 a palindrome, but whatever.
I do I work with what I got.
And whatever direction.
Right. So first of all, Craig, speaking of the fact that it's 99 and Angelo brought up that 100's coming, we have this big contest thing that's going to be wrapping up soon.
We do.
So, Craig, what's the scoop on that?
But when you hear our voices right now talking, you probably have only a day or two left before March 20th. Which is the deadline for submitting your favorite clip of your favorite moment, or try to recreate some cool audio from the show, or just describe something that you were inspired to do by the D6 generation, the first 99 episodes. We're going to have all kinds of categories that Russ thinks he's created that I will actually go rewrite later on.
Exactly.
We're going to have all kinds of prizes. We got Dreadfleet. We got Pandemic. We got Alaminis. We got Space Marine Sprues. We got Dawn of War Steam Codes. We got audiobooks from Black Library and much, much more.
Right, exactly right. And don't forget, you can submit those entries by emailing them to contest@the d6generation.com.
That's contest@the d6generation.com. None of this silly sending it to info@the d6generation.com.
No, that will not count.
We've already given our one pass to a person who did.
You saw that one. Yes, we gave one pass.
Yeah. That's it.
Now, let's say you don't have recording equipment and you're like, I want to contribute, but I know it's got to be audio. I have no recording equipment. We also have a voicemail number.
We do.
And since time is running out.
All you need is your phone. All you need is the phone. All you need is your phone. That would be a crime if I liked the Beatles. Instead, it was just more moderately vindictive.
I think it might have been a crime. So if you want to call that up, just go to our website. On the right-hand side, the phone number's right there.
Yep.
And give us a call.
Leave us a message.
Leave us a voicemail that way, and we will look at it. We'll go through them all. We'll put them together. We'll pick our favorites, and we'll probably play the vast majority. So, at minimum, you're going to get heard on the air, unless it's totally crazy.
Unless it's really bad.
Right. And the good news is you might even win something, so who knows, right?
And there's a song about leaving a message at the tone, but I can't remember it, so you don't have to suffer through it.
No, good.
Leave a message at the tone. Oh, I remembered it. Today I don't feel like doing anything.
So I have to deal with Angelo.
Nothing but recording a podcast. I had one heck of a day, you know what? And I'm going to take it out on you guys through music.
I'm loving it.
Oh, good.
I thought I was the worst singer in the continental U.S., but I'm good.
There you go. You're good. You're good.
Good.
Just like running away from a zombie, you do not have to be the fastest. You just have to be faster than me.
Okay, well, let's get this train back on the rails. Craig, you know what else we should talk about quickly here?
Why don't we go ahead and talk about Adepticon?
Yes, Angelo, are you going to Adepticon?
I will be at Adepticon, going in early, participating in the team tournament, and I'll be there for demos and pickup games.
Nice. Well, so will we. We'll be getting in on Friday. We'll be there the whole day. We'll be there Saturday. We'll be there Sunday. And then, Craig, what are we doing Sunday night?
Oh, Sunday night. We go Sunday. We've got the great board game night on Sunday.
Right.
Just like last year, we're going to do a big event. And Adepticon is hugely excited about this. Mm-hmm. I was on the phone to the Adepticon
Despite the fact it's
today.
us. It's kind of funny.
What's that?
Despite the fact it's us, they're actually excited about it.
Exactly. I have no idea why. But
Right.
Apparently it was a big success last year, and so they're all excited. You know who else is excited is Geek Nation Tours. They're really excited. They're including our board game night as a big event for all their folks. You don't have to pay. You come after. It's after everything else is finished. The only other thing going on is the big poker tournament. So if you don't like poker, you come to us.
Right.
If you're losing at poker, you come to us. Mm-hmm. If you've lost all your money at poker, go somewhere else because you're kind of a loser, and we don't want to deal with that kind of person.
Wow.
But
Right.
seriously, we're going to have all kinds of games. Right now, the only people we've heard from are Steven at Stronghold Games, and they're awesome, and they were huge supporters last year. So you should be able to see and play and possibly win some of their greatest titles, and we're hoping for a lot of other support too. And
I'm sure
bet
we'll
get
support.
it.
Yes, I bet we will. So that's going to be a lot of fun. I'm looking forward to it. I was jealous that you and Rafe got to do that last year, so I'm very excited to be there. And I haven't been to Adepticon since 2007, so I'm looking forward to going back and seeing all the fantastic
It's going to be huge. They
armies.
sold out the entire hotel in November.
I can't wait.
They're running shuttles to the other hotels nearby now.
Yeah, Russ, you're not going to identify. You're not going to recognize Adepticon. It is all grown up.
Oh, really? It's massive now. Nice.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I'm looking forward to it.
It's the big boy now.
Well, they tell you they can't go home again, so we'll see what happens. Now, also, Angelo, in addition to coming on the show and being awesome like he is, he also was kind enough to come to Lost Chapters with us.
Yeah, who doesn't want to go to Dunks?
In Book 27, what do we talk about, Angelo?
We talked about creating the perfect gamer getaway, the man cave, embracing your hobby, taking care of your games, expanding to your Splinter games, and we have a few comments in there of keeping the family happy so you can actually stay married long enough to use your game room.
Nice. Yes. Very important.
Extremely important.
You've got to get sign-off on those big projects like that from the spouse.
And we generally try to stay away from marital advice, but we think we've got this one nailed.
Yeah, or something.
Well,
Yes.
I came home from my trip this week and found that my little ones have camped out in my man cave. There's a pile of, we're going camping this weekend, there's a pile of games they've pulled off the shelf, and they have a note leaning against it. Dad, we're taking these with us.
Awesome. That's awesome. Bad news for the man cave because now it sounds like it's the kids' room, but on the plus side, get some exciting camping to look forward to.
We'll be good.
That's awesome. So, Craig, where do they go to check out Lost Chapters?
Oh, you go to our website and you look at the big giant stack of books over on the it's on the right-hand side of that page, and you'll just click on that, and it'll bring you right to the Lost Chapters where you can buy them a la carte, as they say, or you can buy them all in one big giant package.
Or various options there. Just
Or
check it out.
various other options that change pretty much daily.
Not quite that quickly, but very often. So check it out. Head on over there. So check the Lost Chapters out. We really appreciate your support.
And if I could jump in here, I've been a buyer of the Lost Chapters since the very first one.
Well, thank you.
It's an excellent job. I enjoy the content. I enjoy you guys are a little more off the rails. But what I really like about it is that extra hour, give or take, of podcasting outside of the show that I can pick up on an airplane, a car ride, waiting at the doctor's while my kids, getting their throat checked. It's just one more hour of the best gaming podcast on the air. So if you haven't tried it, try it. You don't have to commit. Go pick up an episode on a topic you like. A game room, for example, would be an excellent topic.
That would be an excellent example.
Throw down 99 cents, and I guarantee you'll be back for more.
Nice.
And we do appreciate the support.
Thank you, Angelo.
Well, I appreciate the time you guys invest in my hobby.
Awesome. Well, Craig, what's the time now for?
Now it's time for Achievements in Gaming.
It is. Go ahead,
My
Angelo.
mobile podcasting kit from the D6 generation came in, and my Echo thingy was missing. I think you guys might have forgotten to send me one of those.
Yeah, I think
Craig pulls the buttons off every single one. It's very annoying.
It's really weird.
He stacks them up.
Why is that, Angelo? Would you like one of these? Or perhaps you would be afraid to be lost in a cave.
I've got one.
Nice.
Keep your ghetto Echo to yourself.
So, Angelo, in lieu of not having an Echo, how would you like to do the shout-out this week for Achievements in Gaming?
Oh, I would love to do the shout-outs. All right. I've got 99 problems, but expert advice on board games and miniature war games ain't one. Also, this joke wasn't worth £8. I don't see a signature on there, but
No,
obviously someone from across the pond.
Yes, thank you very much for supporting the show, and we're sorry it wasn't quite worth £8, but I thought it was pretty funny.
I thought it was pretty funny.
Actually, the £8 on the end was worth £8.
Exactly. That's what made it funny.
Right.
So, good job, you.
Well done, you, as Owen would say across the pond also. So let's see. What have you been playing? Oh, let's start with the guest, Angelo.
All right. I have got a record amount of wargaming and of gaming of all
Wow,
types.
someone's been warming up.
I was
Craig,
on...
wait, Angelo. Craig, I'm starting to think that some of our guests prep extra so when they come on the show they can really talk about
I think they
something.
store up games.
I think so, too.
You're no slouch either, Russ, but I mean, seriously, Angelo, this is ridiculous.
This was a
You're running a
marathon.
multinational. You're running a multinational corporation, and you're playing all these games. That's ridiculous. That's not true. I disbelieve.
Bring any one of these to the table, and I will lose at it with experience.
Achievement for that.
Ascension tops my list. I've played all three of the different box sets individually and then combinations. This game was actually brought to me through discovering it on the iPad. I liked it so much I bought the board game version of it, the card game, and I've played it many times.
Nice.
Quarriors brought that back to the table in a 6-game marathon using a quick reset rule that we use, that after you play a game, you remove any card that still has all 5 of its dice, just deal into those and play again. So very little setup time, and by the end of it, you get a super elite set of cards, and it makes just for some exciting quarriors.
Nice.
Played Dominion really for the first time. Played through all 5 of the core scenarios in that. Played a game of Talisman, the base game only. I'm admitting, first time I've ever played it. I wanted to get it to the table after hearing the controversy on this show about the game. And I got to admit, 30 minutes into it, I felt I had no control of where the game was going.
Ding, 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 ding.
Probably willing to play it again, but not something that I would go out of my way to do.
Achievement for understanding the problems with Talisman.
Yes. Now, what do you feel? How do you feel about the fact that they're coming out with another slightly weird version with 40K?
You know what? I hadn't heard that. I am a bit of a 40K fanboy.
See?
So I will buy it, but I probably won't take the wrapper off it.
Oh, wow.
That'll teach him.
Wow.
What's that game going to be called, Russ? I forget.
I did not see the name of it. As soon as I saw the word Talisman in the email, I just checked out.
I think it's called Relic.
Oh, I think you're right. Yeah.
But,
now, is FFG doing this, or is it GW doing it?
Well, I would guess it was FFG. To be totally honest, I didn't actually look.
See, because you saw the Talisman thing too. Look, no hate. No hate. We just are very disappointed in Talisman.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one. That was not my favorite experience.
Right.
But the same night, I played Warhammer Fantasy Role-Playing 2nd Edition. We're using heroic class characters with 60 advancements, so that's a great game.
Now, how are you liking? That's the one with all the funky dice, right?
No, we're playing second edition, which is the D10, the D100 base system. It's a good game. I enjoy the group I play with, so I think it's more the experience than the game set itself. We're really neutral to the framework of the game, and we just like telling the story.
Oh, that's cool.
And got some Mouse Guard in with Rafe in the online group. A pickup game of 40K getting ready for Adepticon, Salamanders versus Necrons.
Nice.
I played a little Where's My Fish with my 4-year-old. I lost.
Oh, dear. Well, that's good.
Excellent
Cheer
work.
for your son.
Yep. Couple of games of the Drist board game, some Pokemon with my daughters, and then just a metric ton of Summoner Wars, both on the tabletop and through the electronic Vassal system, and a couple games of Dungeon Run.
We should throw down versus Vassal. That's a good game.
Yep, and I'm missing. I would love to do that. Right, Russ will put it together. And then I missed one on here. I played Sunday night on Fantasy Grounds, a quick 4E encounter, also with the Rafe online group.
Wow, look at all those RPGs in there, Craig. How does he find that time? You should listen to this show to figure out how he finds the time to do all that stuff.
That is
amazing. Sorry, did that?
I don't sleep.
Apparently not. That's pretty impressive, Angelo, especially all those RPGs in there. That's a lot of time.
Well, what you see though is a lot of these are with the kids. I have rules. I don't step away from the family to play the Xbox or a board game when my kids are awake.
Yep.
But quite a few of these games are with them, so it's a combination of family time, game time, and allows me to feed my hobby.
Yeah, I have the same rules actually, but I'll play games with my kids. That's okay. Like we've been playing a lot. Well, I'll say that for other. So let's see. I've been playing.
It is a fantasy flight game.
Okay, well, good job on the look at that on the spot research, Johnny on the spot.
There you go. Look at that. Took a while. Though.
I played a newish game called Dragon Rampage. This game is like a combination of Alien Frontiers meets raiding a dragon lair. Right, so you're rolling d6s, you're putting the dice in spots, you're getting abilities for them. No hate here, but I was really disappointed in. You can tell that between the prototype and the actually produced copy, there were some changes in production stuff. So, like, for example, some of the cards will say things like, you can roll an extra black die or an extra blue die, but the dice are actually all the same color now, and there's just different shapes on the edges. So, like, that's kind of a big problem, right? Because you don't know which die to re-roll, so you got to go look in the book and find the table where it tells you that blue now means this. And so that's kind of so kind of a graphic design fail in this game because it looks like some concepts were switched in the middle of it. Kind of like the concept of it, but unfortunately it wasn't quite as smooth to play as we'd hoped.
That doesn't sound so good.
But we did enjoy a nice big game of BattleTech.
No,
So
I'm jealous.
broke out the introductory box and sent out an email, and we got 5 players interested. And so thanks to Mike L., who's a new player at Myriad that I just met, Vince, our old friend Vince from Daka Daka Days, Keith, and Jericho all came. And because we had 5 players, we went with 1 heavy or 1 medium and a light versus 3 lights. And it ended up being really close. We played with all the rules. There's torsoing. There was overheating. We had jumping over behind people, shooting them in the back. We had guys overheat and shut down. We had a guy fall down, knock his back armor off. We had legs blown off arms. It was awesome. It was just good fun.
How long was that game with?
It was 5 mechs, 5 players, 4 of whom really hadn't played in forever or ever, and it lasted 2 hours.
That's not bad.
I didn't think that was bad, right?
Not bad at all.
You definitely want to keep it. The lighter mechs go down quicker, right? So you want to keep it that way. But yeah, we played on the nice. Ryan was nice to bring in his awesome HeroScape terrain. So BattleTech on HeroScape is really fun. Actually, looks great and it works totally fine. So we had a good time with that. Then I played. Went over to my brother's house with our families, and first, the kids were playing. Skylanders is the hotness right now. They're all playing Skylanders. Well, they were doing that. My brother and his wife and my wife and I, Nicole, played Alhambra, we're getting really interested in Alhambra lately. We're having a lot of fun with that. It's a great, light, fast game, and it's got enough nice depth to it. It's kind of like individual Carcassonne. I think I've talked about this before on the show. You're building your own tile city, but individually. So instead of one shared city, there's each working on one, trying to get the best colors, and the interaction comes in the middle when you're bidding for the right tiles for your city. So it's kind of neat.
Cool.
And then later the same day, the reason we got together was because I think I mentioned before, I had my niece and nephew roll up Fairy's Tale characters last time at our house, and they've been begging my brother to get us together so we can run a Fairy's Tale game. So we got together, and all 4 of the kids all had their characters ready, and John, my brother, made up a character, and my brother's just an awesome DM, but B, a great character because he always does the great voices and crazy things, and we had a blast. But here's a little tip. So this fairy game is, what's nice about it, there's only 3 stats per character, so it's very simple for kids to get a hold of. And basically, as a DM, you're just breaking down the tests for 3 different stats, right? So if you're trying to do anything physical, use the strength check, stat, that kind of thing. But there's this concept called essence, which is basically like the fairy energy. And as you do tough things, you can spend essence, kind of like, fate points or whatever, to get better chances. But as you do good role-playing, you give out essence just like any other role-playing game. So I might give you some essence for making a good one-liner with your fairy or thinking of something really clever to do. But one of the things the game specifically says to do with kids is try to get interactive storytelling and give out essence for kids, making things more challenging. So I gave the example at the start of the game. I said, hey, so if you guys have a good idea to make something more challenging, like I say, there's a giant castle wall there, and you say, but you said it was cold outside, let's make it an ice wall covered with ice so it's harder to climb, I would give you some essence for that. So I said this thinking, the kids will have fun with that. Well, suddenly, it became their primary role-playing focus to make things as hard on themselves as humanly possible. To the point where my brother John got on one of the fairy's chipmunks, and his own daughter said, but what my dad doesn't know is my chipmunk has bad gas.
Wow.
So it sort of developed into this. And what's funny about that is it developed, the fact that her chipmunk had bad gas sort of developed into this giant campaign plot point where at the end they were stuck on a floating, someone had put pixie dust on a floating, it's a long story, but horse. They couldn't get the horse to move, so they had the idea, what if they squeezed the chipmunk to get the gas to come out to get it to go faster, and to use fairy dust? It was just got this crazy situation. It was really funny. Kind of the only thing you can really appreciate with kids, but it was a lot of fun. They had a really great time. Lots of laughing and craziness ensued. So good times.
You've answered the question. I've always wondered where gaming and flatulence cross the line.
That's it.
It starts early.
It does start early. So it was like, kids like to make butt jokes and whatever, and there was one of them right there, but it was a good time. Also, I've been playing a lot of, this is sort of cheating, but it's online, but I'm playing a lot of Blood Bowl. My Molnir Mashers, my Norse team, are still doing quite well. I've been getting very lucky and fortunate. So right now I'm ranked, I think, at number 2 still in the league. Going into we're at the 3/4 mark. We had a lot of players now. 16 players was like 16 weeks, and then we're going to the finals or something. It's crazy. But have a good time with that. And then finally, I think I mentioned this in passing before, but we also played Mouse Guard over the Connect with our family. And I think on the last show I mentioned that the family was from Kentucky. I was misspoke. They're actually from Tennessee. Sorry, guys. And we had a great time. Their Connect was great for this, the video conference featuring Connect. They had all their characters made up. We had a great time. We had a lot of fun. And it came across, the dialogue and everything was perfectly fine, because it was visual and the Connect zooms in when you're talking and things on people automatically. It was really very easy to work with. Works great. People were asking me on Skype when I mentioned, or not Skype, but on Twitter when I mentioned I did it. They said, well, do you think you could use it for board games and stuff? And I think the answer is kind of no, because Kinect doesn't shoot down onto the board, so I don't know how you'd see that. But for a storytelling situation where you're just doing dialogue pretty much, it works fine. So if you don't have a need for a battle board in your RPGs and you're playing things like maybe Mouse Guard or Fairy's Tale or even some of the more very story-based RPGs, it works great. It worked really, really well. We really enjoyed it. So highly recommend trying that out. We're going to continue going. I think everybody had a good time, so I got to send them their leveling information, and we're going to try it again, I think.
No, cool.
And what's kind of cool about the two, it really amazed me, and it kind of shows the power of games here. Here you've got a family down in Tennessee. I've never met them before. They had never met us except for the podcast. And my daughter's never met them. And we started out, and the kids were all sort of timid. And as soon as we started doing the storytelling and started doing the jokes, everything started rolling, it was like we'd been friends forever. It was just rolling along. Everybody was making suggestions. It was great. A lot of fun. So the games are just awesome at getting people together. I really like that part about gaming.
I have an observation.
Yes.
You fell down on Angelo like a ton of bricks wearing a plaid hat for doing all kinds of role-playing, and it looks to me like you have 2 role-playing games on your little thing here, buddy.
I do, but I should point out that kids...
And it looks like Angelo's only got 2 on his list.
Yeah, but kids...
3 when I threw in the D&D 4th, and I'm going to trump Russ
where'd
on that
that
one.
go?
Yeah, I played it Sunday. Forgot to put it on the bullets.
Oh, okay. There's my problem.
Well, I should also point out that at average...
My memory is faulty.
Well, one tip, for RPG play with kids, you got to keep the sessions short. So I try not to go over 2 hours when I'm playing with kids. That's even kind of long for some of the younger players. So I don't know, Angelo, were your sessions...
Same rule we use when we're playing with Rafe.
Okay. Fair enough. Excellent. So, Craig, what have you been playing?
Absolutely nothing.
What?
No, absolutely nothing.
Wow. Busy writing stuff for people?
Well, no, let's see. I went to, where was I?
Oh, that's
right. I was in Australia.
Oh, save that for other.
New Zealand.
That's right. Okay. Good.
I will save that for other. I will. I'm just saying.
Well, when
then I came back and I was kind of like the jet lag kicked my butt 7 ways from Sunday, so I didn't play any games on that day. And then the serious problem is I was defeated once again by the whole the curse of the God only knows what. Bambino doesn't really fit, but our group is never ever ever to finish any kind of league and or campaign again.
Oh, what happened? Did the Warhammer Fantasy fall apart?
I came flying back going, okay, let's go. I painted up all my Warhammer Fantasy Battle stuff, and all of my immediate little group of friends is like, oh, we don't know, I don't know, oh, I can't do it that day, oh, I just gave up, oh, I'm not doing it anymore,
oh dear, achievement for trying.
So hey, I painted all my 2,000 points, so so that's why I didn't get a game in that week, and then yesterday I decided, you know what? People were still, I can't go. I'm not going to be ready. I don't have my stuff. I'm going to go see John Carter of Mars.
There you go.
Which I will cover in other.
Fair enough. So, Craig, when you are in the United States and people are playing games you're interested in, where do you prefer to play?
Oh, you cannot do better than a Myriad Games in Manchester, although the store in Salem is great too, and I was just there on Monday.
I was there this week too,
yeah. Myriad Games it's clean, the people there are friendly, they know what they're doing, they can immediately go into that computer and find anything that you could ever possibly ask for, and whether it's in one of the 2 stores, and they can get it to you wherever you're going. It's pretty impressive. And you want to check out their new upgraded MVP memberships at myriadgames.com/MVP. And that's where it recharges each month for Myriad money, MVP points, and MVP rewards. In fact, I just got a big, huge, giant reward. This week, the special for MVP members, I believe, of gold and above, is if you spend $50 on Dystopian Wars, you get a Prussian or an Antarctican land box set for free.
Awesome.
So I used an MVP point accumulation to knock $25 off my $50 purchase, spent $25 and got $100 worth of stuff.
Nice.
Nowhere else on the planet, my friends.
All right, well, achievement for that. So let's talk about modeling. So, Angelo, what have you been doing?
Got quite a bit in getting ready for Adepticon. I'm playing the Necrons, and the Triarch Stalker is a new model that doesn't have a kit for it. So I kit bashed a couple of GW kits, a couple of other kits, and I built a Triarch Stalker.
Very nice.
Yeah, painted a few Necrons, but let's be honest, a little silver, a little gold, and some basing, so it's not really an accomplishment that I can claim.
Still painting.
Yeah, they're going to be on the table. They got their 3 colors plus. Built and painted a display board, and finally assembled some Khador and a little bit of Malifaux, which I think I'll be bringing in my bag and getting some games in as well.
Nice. Well, let's see. Ooh, I've been working on Project Obscuring Luna some more here.
Really?
So I've been acquiring. So I'm putting a Wraith here and counting buying models as painting them. So I did. I've been looking for the right sized stuff. So Litco has some cool new flight stands that are actually designed for Eclipse, and they are very, very small bases. So what they're designed for is to hold ships up and not take up a lot of space on the board. So I've ordered some of those, and then I am working on getting the small ships, the frigates, not the frigates, the escorts for Firestorm, and I'm going to see if escorts, then frigates, and then cruisers are the right 3 scales for the ships in the thing. And I'm going to try with my Aquan Prime first, and if they work out, then I'll work on one of the other fleets. So I'm going to try to get 2 players together, so we have 2 players try it out. And if that works, we'll work up way up to. You need at least 3, but we'll work it out.
Cool.
So that's coming along. How about you, Craig?
As I just said, for my 2,000-point Warriors of Chaos army, I finished my Zinchian War Shrine, which is a big kit bash, as Angelo just said, because they don't sell a model for that either. And it's built around a giant JR Miniatures tomb that I slapped some big, huge iron wheels on from plastic, but they look like iron. And it's being pulled by a huge 2-headed mutant ogre. By chains attached to the front, and it has a huge obelisk on the top that's in flames, and it's all blue flames and iron, and so I'm really happy with the way that came out. And I finished. These are models that have been. Actually, that one is completely new, but I have had the other one, this Sorcerer on a Disc. I've had laying partially assembled in my box for almost 15 years now, and I finished putting him together and painting him. So I'm all excited, and I have 2,000 points, and Node will fight me, damn you!
Nice. Well, what are you going to do?
What are you going to do? At least I stuck through it.
At least you got modeling done, right? So. You got another cool army. It's all good.
There you go.
So, Angelo, what have you been working on for other?
Look, lots of stuff in the other category. I'm working on the game room, which you can hear more about in the Lost Chapters.
That sounds awesome, dude.
It's a lot of fun. They're sitting in there now. Digitally, Skyrim, I'm not... I've embraced the game, but I haven't had a lot of time to play. Obviously, I had to get my real gaming in. Skylanders is big in our house as well. Castle Crashers, and my new favorite for travel, the PS Vita.
Now, let me ask you this. Do you find the Vita, I mean, you have an iPad too, right? I'm sure.
I do. It really comes down to quick gaming. The iPad dominates and is great, but if you want a more... if you want to be more embedded in the experience, a deeper, crunchier game, you got the joystick control. You've got it's just a little different platform.
So it feels more like a console experience.
It does. Yeah. The iPad is probably the dominant electronic game device in my life, but the PS Vita's got some potential. I like the way it integrates with the PS3, and I'm looking forward to seeing where that goes. I'm a bit of an early adapter. I like to see how technology evolves.
Cool.
On the iPad, Dominion, Ascension, Forbidden Island, and iBomber Defense.
Ooh, iBomber, check that one out.
Those are kind of sitting on the tarmac, waiting to take off games. Finally started watching Game of Thrones. Ooh. I've never read it. I've never listened to it. Always kind of knew about it. Picked up the HBO miniseries, 10-disc or the 10-episode box set. Put them on my iPad. Wasn't really thinking much of it. Started watching it. Stayed up all night. Watch the first 6 episodes from start to finish. Nice. I'm going to knock out the other 4 while I'm camping. I am completely embedded in the Game of Thrones, and since I've wasted all this time, there's a lot of books for me to read. I don't have to worry about him keeping up with his writing.
Right. Yeah, see, there you go.
Yep. Working on a Savage World mini campaign using iBook Author. I'm doing it more like an iBook, so I'll have my campaign on my iPad when we play it.
Cool. What background or theme?
We are doing Deadlands.
Excellent choice.
And doing a kind of a hero level where they're throw some experience levels at them and have them explore. It's going to be one of those interesting games. We're going to go into the spirit world, which if you know that the Deadlands background is what started it all. So we're going across the borders.
Cool.
Enjoyed a brief visit to Imagine Games in Sherwood, Arkansas, a northern suburb of Little Rock. What a great store. Never been there. Very clean, big game room. If you're in the Little Rock area, it's worth the time to go visit. And then finally, as I mentioned earlier, packing for the long camping trip weekend. I've got a stack of board games, family-focused. Looking at the titles, 3 of them I picked up at Myriad Games.
Nice.
One of which I was looking at some games, talking to Dan about the age of my children. He suggested Castle Panic.
Oh, good
and
game.
It has become a fast favorite. We've got the expansion, which I haven't tried yet.
I was going to ask, do you have the expansion has one of the coolest bags in gaming.
It's in. I saw the bag when I moved the expansion into the shared box today, and I noticed that bag.
It's got a little stitched monster face on it that looks awesome.
Wow.
The part. I've not played with the expansion, although I've seen it played. But the basic game is great for families. It's a good game.
I have an awkward question.
Okay.
Looking at all of these bullet points, Angelo, are you sure you're not having some kind of you weren't laid off or anything, were you?
So my travel goes in phases. If you look at the next 90 days, I'm nonstop travel.
Okay.
But we had our annual conference in New Orleans, and prepping for that, I had 2 weeks in a row where I was home, and that is just. My wife doesn't want me around. I've got all these evenings suddenly to myself. A friend of mine who's a gamer was on spring break from his school, so I just threw down and filled that time and got it all in.
Well done,
man.
sir.
When he's got the time, you are a machine.
Nice.
Well, a lot of this is in hotel rooms or on airplanes. That's all the work on my Savage Worlds mini campaign has all been done on the road.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, you can do it. You got a game where you can.
There you go.
So give a couple examples for listeners for the camping games. You mentioned Castle Panic. Give what else to bring in?
I got Black Sheep, Castle Panic.
Ooh, Black Sheep's a good one.
Yeah, Black Sheep's a lot of fun. Junior Labyrinth, Snake Lake, and a game called Castle Keep, and then we've got Pokemon.
No Survive, huh?
I misplaced my copy of Survive.
Oh.
I took it on a road trip, and I don't think it made it back, so I'm going to have to.
Someone
I'm going to
stole
have
it.
to pick that up. I love that one in Gears of War. They made the trip, and I don't think they made it home.
Another really good one for camping is because it's so easy to pack is Ella Minis. Have you seen this game?
I have not
kids?
tried it. I've heard you talk about it. I haven't tried it.
Yeah, check that one out. It's a good one for the kids. That's always a big hit.
Think
Or
about playing.
submit something for the contest and try to win it.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, it's
I
in the
am
prize
bringing
pool, right?
zombie dice because nothing makes a kid sleep well in a camping trip like thoughts of zombies.
Right. My oldest daughter will not play that game because she hates zombies. She's freaked out by them.
Wow.
It's hilarious. And it's just a dice game, but she won't play it.
I have lost to my 9-year-old probably 20 times in a row. Dice hate me.
Nice. So let's see. I've been playing. Have I talked about Light Strike on this show before? I can't remember.
No.
So picked up the coolest technology for kids, adults ever. Do you guys remember laser tag, right?
Yeah.
The game where the guns, you shoot targets. Okay, so Light Strike is like the 2012 version of these things, okay? There are 3 different literal molds of guns. There are rifles and there are pistols. The guns have fully interactive voices in them, so they talk to you, and you can pick different modes. You can be like pulse blast and laser beam, and you can pick different modes of the guns. How the guns fire dictates their range and their power of the blast. Then you're trying to target the other guns. You can change the color codes of the guns for the teams. So you can have 4 different teams, or everybody can be on the same team. You flip it all around how you want to do it. There are base units for capture the flag. It is fantastic. My brother's family got these things. We got them for our kids. We were running around having the best time ever. Check out Light Strike. It is just a fun, really well implemented version of laser tag, but it is really cool and affordable. Playing more Hero Academy, which is just don't start playing Hero Academy. It will steal your soul. And, of course, the big new video game hotness that released since last time is, of course, Mass Effect 3. Angelo, are you a Mass Effect fan or no?
I tried the demo. I might pick it up. That's a bit big and crunchy for my tastes.
It is a big game. But I'm a huge sci-fi fan. It's probably my favorite RPG series ever. So got the 3rd one. And unfortunately, or fortunately, depending how you look at it, Nicole was out of town this past weekend at South by. And while she was out of town, I was under strict orders not to play the campaign because she likes to watch the story too. So I played the multiplayer. And this is sort of interesting because in Mass Effect, you're thinking multiplayer and a single-player RPG, it's probably tacked on. It's probably kind of not so good. What they did, though, was the multiplayer is actually like Hordes mode from Gears of War, where you're working together up to 3 other players, so 4 players total, trying to just beat off aliens as they come at you. But what's really cool about it is instead of just beating off aliens, there's actually different kind of modes. So like in the 3rd or 4th wave, it might say you must disable these 4 devices. So instead of just being able to find the best defensible position on the map and hold it, you now have got to spread out, find these different things to disable them or take out key targets. So they mix it up on you in the middle of the waves. And if you make it to the end of all the waves, you get extracted and get all kinds of bonus points. What's really interesting about it, in addition to all the normal multiplayer stuff, which is your guys level up, you get better gear, you unlock more stuff, which almost all the multiplayer games have now, it also, in the main Mass Effect story, the overarching story that's been building up over the past 2 games is that this giant alien race is coming and invading the galaxy, and now in the final installment, you're trying to build up forces to repel them, and one of the main key features of the game is you're looking at the different sectors of the solar system, or of the galaxy, actually, not the solar system, and looking at where the strengths and weaknesses are, what the percentages are for where the aliens are strong. If you play multiplayer, you score points in those areas, so it kind of augments and helps your single-player experience, which is sort of interesting. It's kind of a neat implementation. I'm really liking it. I can't wait to play single-player. So now that Nicole's back, I'm looking forward to that as well. And speaking of sci-fi, I think I mentioned this before, I love, love, love John Ringo's work. I've been reading Troy Rising. I finished Citadel. Fantastic ending. And now I've just started the 3rd book in the series, The Hot Gate. And Craig, I was thinking about this. We had talked about the first book in the series, Live Free or Die, which came out back in 2010. And I was like, when did the rest of these books come out? He published them. Live Free or Die came out in February 2010. Then Citadel came out in January 2011. Then Hot Gate came out in May of 2011.
Wow.
It was like boom, boom, boom. I don't know if...
That's what happens in real life when a real author actually has a book that's so big they have to split it in 2.
Right. He was done before, and he just split it up. Right.
That's what happens when that really happens. Not when not when an author lies about that happening.
Not naming any names.
Not naming any names, and I don't hate. Right. I love, but seriously.
So, and I love Audible, and the thing about Audible is, I get my 1 credit a month. I'm very diligent with not getting it. And these books were so good, I was like, come on, give me a deal, Audible. Let me buy the next one early.
Yeah.
It was so bad. So yeah, if you want to try some of these great audiobooks, definitely check out Audible. Go to our website and click on the Audible link on the right-hand side, and they'll hook you up with a great deal. You get a free Audible credit, which is good for almost any single book. It's yours to keep. And then also you get 30-day free trial.
30 days is huge.
Use Audible, and any kind of sales or any cool deals that come out in those 30 days, you're just like being a full member. You can take advantage of all those great pricing. So check out audibletrial.com/D6G.
Or go to our website and click on the Audible icon.
Right. So what have you been doing for other, Craig?
Well, I'm still listening, speaking of audiobooks, to Monster Hunter International by the Korea is his last name. I can't remember his first name. There are some brutal eye-rolling moments because this is so nerdvana. And just like, oh, I used to be an accountant in a cubicle, and now, did I mention that I'm a pit fighter? Oh, did I mention that my parents brought me up to be a marksman? Oh, did I mean, it's like, oh, okay, I get it. Oh, the most beautiful woman in the world who has a boyfriend, she just fell for me anyway. I was like, oh, okay. But it is still a guilty pleasure, and it's still a lot of fun to read, and it reads exactly like a role-playing scenario. So I gotta get some I don't know. So I gotta do something to fit this into either Savage Worlds or something. I'm like half decided I have to write to either Korea or Pinnacle and try to get them to like let me do this, because I think it would be an awesome just nerdvana role playing extravaganza.
Nice.
I finished the Iron Druid, the books of the Iron Druid series. And it is a lot like Dresden, except that where Dresden has a certain sanctity for human life, he has a certain, even if you're an idiot, he's going to try to save you. In these books, it's kind of like, oh, by the way, you pissed off the Celtic god of death. And so later on, she's like, I'm going to kill those guys. And the main character's like, okay, do what you got to do.
Whatever.
I'm like, seriously? You're just going to... And then he starts killing off gods left. And I'm like real from mythology, like not stuff he made up for the books. And so there's just an awful lot of death and destruction. And so it's not like a... I mean, there's a lot of darkness in Dresden, but at the same time, there's a lot of light, and the good guys are really definable as good guys. And in the Iron Druid, and I totally get, the guy's been alive for 2,000 years, and he grew up in the Iron Age, and it's a different, the author does a good job of putting all that out there for you, but it's not as comfortable a world for me. And speaking of a world that's not comfortable, in the airport in LA, realizing how fast I was reading the Iron Druid books, I knew I needed to pick up another book. And I remembered at some point that on the We Got a Pair email group, a bunch of people were talking about Stephen King's Under the Dome.
Oh, but not that one.
Yeah, so
that's
I
a political treatise, dude. That's a political treatise. Don't read that.
It is 100%. It's an epitome of his work in many different ways.
But I love Stephen King, but I will never read that book just because it's...
I will tell you right now that you shouldn't. It's not only it's a diatribe in sections, not only politically. I mean, and his politics have been showing kind of consistently since the mid 2000s, but this is blatant, and his view of the military and his view of religion. So it's kind of like it's sort of getting body blows as you read through the whole thing, unless you agree 100% with him. Because even if you agree with him, but you have some sense of decency about the whole the whole public debate element of society, then you're probably going to you're going to be a little uncomfortable. But aside from that, I mean, seriously, every character you meet in the first 30 pages, spoiler alert, dies.
Well, that's
so
Stephen
you're
King
like,
for you.
wow, bam, they're dead. Oh, bam, they're dead. Oh, Jesus Christ, they're dead. Oh, beep that. I mean, he gets me worked up. He's an excellent, excellent writer. I want to be able to write like him, but I don't want to write what he writes. That's what it comes down to. I don't like how he treats his characters. I don't like the worlds that he creates are not places I want to spend my time, and I forgot that. And so, yeah.
No hate,
so,
just disappointment.
No hate. Just,
I actually am a big Stephen King fan, but there's certain books of his I avoid, and that's one of them.
Yeah, and you should. Speaking of writing, which I'm tiny little guppy next to him, so I'm not even saying, and it just so happens that that's the order it comes in. I could talk a little bit about the next thing. Did I talk about the Tome of Fate book?
Yes, I believe you did.
Okay, cool. So I was very excited about that. Just finished up the biggest project for them yet, which was brutal as far as the work goes, but an awful lot of fun and really iconic. So that was super exciting. Just gearing up for another job for them. I had like a couple weeks off. That was very nice to be able to paint some and not have to write it all. And I'm working on 2 new projects for Spartan, both of them extremely interesting. One is on spec because I'm trying to sell them on an idea, and it's interesting and it has the potential to be really, really awesome. The other one is interesting and just really, really odd. Just very odd. And
I can't wait to hear that.
And it's odd. So anyway, just came back from New Zealand and Australia. I loved both of those countries immensely. Thank you to the listeners who tried to meet up with me, and I'm really sorry that I couldn't make it work. It's just those group travel trips are so ridiculously busy. But New Zealand is Middle Earth. I will say that. I mean, it's crazy. It's like England in the middle distance and the close-in shots, it's England, and then in the background, it's these huge mountains that haven't been scoured down by glaciers, and it's just amazing. The people were awesome. Really, the only thing is, don't ever forget that you have an apple in your backpack when you land at the airport in Auckland, or they will charge you $400.
Wow.
It didn't happen to me, but it happened to my roommate, and I was just like, oh, dude. Seriously? $400. And he was like, I'm sorry, I forgot. They gave it to me. It was the middle of the night, my time. I was asleep when I put it in my backpack. Oh, no, we believe you. If we didn't believe you, it'd be $2,000 and a year in jail. It's like, whoa, Jesus.
Wow.
So welcome to New Zealand, where they take their apples very seriously.
And Craig, I got a chance recently to read some of your writing for Spartan Games, and I wanted to commend you on capturing the main character. I've never read a story where I felt I identified more with the main character.
That's awesome. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Should we elaborate on what that is to our listeners? So that
Angelo is referring to the short story from the Extra Life, which finally made it onto the Spartan Games website with an awesome, if I might say, and a very dashing and handsome portrait of the main character.
And Angelo being the high bidder.
Bears a passing resemblance to Angelo.
Right.
And so that story is up there now on their website under the blogs if you want to go and check it out. Let me know what you think, because I liked the way it came out. I was excited. and they released it while I was away, so I couldn't really do any kind of promotion because I had a couple things in the works that I wanted to put up, and I just kind of at the last minute had to scramble and I was in an internet cafe when I saw that it had happened. So I was like, "Oh crap!" We
tweeted it and Facebooked it and put it on our blog, so you can check it out.
Okay,
Head over to
cool.
Spartan
So
Games.
there you go. So thank you.
No, it came out. I really enjoyed the reading it too, Craig. It came out great. It was a lot of fun.
Thank you.
Thank you for doing that. It was a lot of fun.
Oh, thank you for your support, Angelo. You were a huge part of helping catapult me into the top 10 worldwide, briefly.
Awesome. So
and then in New Zealand and Australia, just very, very quickly, of course, my Flames of War army, as most people know, is Maori. Maori, I know how to say it now, see? It was Maori. And I went to the Auckland War Museum, which is actually a museum that's got a whole bunch of different stuff in it, just as war, but it's an awesome museum. And it got me all excited again for my Maori. It's Maori, but they say it Maori with their accent, so I'm not sure exactly how I settle in the middle of that. But so I came home going like, oh, Flames of War, it's not really my thing, but I love those models, and I never did sell them, and I still have them, and lo and behold, Flames of War has just come out with their 3rd edition rulebook. And a friend of ours who doesn't play anymore was like, hey, I have the hard copy of the 2nd edition, which means you can trade it in for the soft cover of the 3rd edition if you want. And I was like, oh, I'll do that. So I've been looking it over, and I don't know if I'm going to be able to avoid it because, to be totally honest, with the Tuesday crowd, unless you're playing Malifaux or Flames of War, or unless I'm driving a Spartan game project, there's really nothing else you can do for miniatures where you know that they're going to finish and you know they're going to be playing constantly. So I may find my way back into Malifaux and Flames of War, which will be interesting. But
there you go.
That's neither here nor there for today. For today, that's all my other.
Nice. So is that achievements?
That is achievements.
You're listening to the D6 generation. Born to game.
Now it's time to talk about our friends at battlefoam.com. You know, Romeo and the boys at Battlefoam are always working on the latest stuff. They will be at Adepticon, just like Craig, myself, and Angelo.
Looking forward to it.
Right. So you can say hi to Romeo, get your latest foam bag on, see all the stuff in person there. You know, when you're at a con, get the Battle Foam early. They sell through their stuff like hotcakes.
They do.
So get there early to get the good stuff. Also, speaking of good stuff, the official Cool Mini or Not Dark Age bag is up on their website, ready to ship. So head on over there to check that out. And that's at battlefoam.com/category/cool-mini-or-not-bag. Yeah, so anyway, that's one way to get there. Or you just go to battlefoam.com and find it. Also, the X-Board Fury official Privateer Press display boards. These are the boards that have the little pre-cut circles in them, so your guys stick right in there. You can carry them around tournaments. Are also available there. And let's see, DualCon, a 3-day Warhammer 40K and War Machine Hordes gaming convention, going up in Mesa, Arizona, September 28th through 30th at the Hilton Mesa. It's going to be a War Machine weekend qualifier. Grand prize is going to get tickets to Adepticon 2013, along with plane tickets, up to $250 paid for you. Cool Mini or Not will be holding a Crystal Brush qualifier at that event, and much more going on. Great stuff going on there. And tickets are available on the Battlefoam website. So head over to battlefoam.com/products/dualcon-event-badge to get that information.
.html.
You're right. Or just go to dualcon.com. That's what I would recommend.
There you go. Dualcon.
Like a sword duel.
Like I challenge you to a duel.
Yes. So check out all the great stuff at battlefoam.com. They do awesome, awesome stuff.
Ooh-ah!
And now, what's in the news? With the shout-out, The Gaming Geek, with some of the best prices on eBay for your miniature board game and RPG needs. Visit stores.ebay.com/the-gaming-geek. And now the news. Starting off with a sad bit of news today. Professor M.A.R. Barker passed away on March 16th. Professor Barker was probably best known for his work on role-playing games and was a major inspirational source for Dave Arneson and Gary Gygax. We didn't think his passing should go unnoticed. And now, in other news, North American Blood Bowl Team Championships. If you're a Blood Bowl fan and would like to play in a serious, hardcore, best gamers on the planet, or so they claim, and get a chance to go to Vegas, head on down in, it's going to be 2013, so plan now. There's a year out. It's going to be late April, early May. It's going to be 3 days of 9 Blood Bowl games, 4-man teams. They're looking at the price point between $125 and $150. So keep an eye out for more information on the Blood Bowl North American Team Championships coming soon. Another big news, Robotech Battles has recently announced they're in talks with Palladium Books for producing a full-scale miniature war game based on the Robotech license. Tabletop Gaming is reporting this news, and it's very, very exciting, along with some preview shots of the mech models. Head on over there and take a look. Let's see. Oh, also, Stronghold Games has announced that their pre-orders are now being taken for Revolver, a card-based cowboy shooter game, and Lost Temple, an Indiana Jones Pulp Fiction-style temple raiding game. Can't go wrong with that. The pre-orders will be open for 3 weeks, so if you're interested in those titles, head on over to Stronghold Games and take a look. Quite a few iPad board game announcements lately with release dates, so let's take a look at what some of these are. Let's see, starting off with Le Havre, promised in March or maybe early April 2012, so soon, apparently, if you're a big shipping boat fan. And all this information is coming from iPadBoardGames.org, by the way. Also, Nightfall, the card games, coming to iPad, probably in April as well, they're claiming. And let's see, one of my favorites, Race for the Galaxy, promised early this year, so hopefully in Q2 sometimes. That's always exciting. And it's Through the Ages, another great civilization building game, promised in May of 2012. And Summoner Wars, one of Wakeland's favorites. I love Summoner Wars. Yes, reviewed later in this very episode. Promised in or around June of 2012. Well, that'll be great. And Rafe's favorite, Agricola, summer 2012. And finally, let's see, 2 more quick ones. Eclipse promised in 2012, as well as Stronghold, the Siege of the Castle game, also promised this year as well. If you're an iPad fan or an iOS fan, good time to be a board gamer as well. And that's what... Wait, no, I got one more thing to say. What's that, Wakeland? You got something? Yeah, I need to do a quick Russ's Rant. Just a quick one. Really short. All right, Wakeland, come over to the microphone so you don't sound like a squeaky mouse or something. All right, here I come. All right, I got a quick rant. I'll be off the air quickly. I just want to say that I heard today that they're coming out with StarCraft Risk. Really? StarCraft Risk? Okay, now back when Blizzard was just Blizzard and not owned by Activision, there was a nice license between Blizzard and Fantasy Flight Games, and Fantasy Flight made some great board games based on the license. There was the World of Warcraft board game, and there's also the great StarCraft board game, which is a little fiddly, but a great fun, great implementation, and great theme. But now, Activision has decided to cancel that license, and we learned about this about a year ago when Fantasy Flight Games announced that the StarCraft board game would no longer be produced because they no longer have the license. And it turned out that Activision apparently has turned to Hasbro, and they're producing StarCraft Risk. What's next? World of Warcraft Monopoly? Diablo Sorry? I mean, please, that is just... we don't need more of those games. Okay, that's all I got. You feel better now? Yeah, I feel great. That was crazy talk. Oh, good. And that's what's in the news.
And it sounds odd talking about this right after I came home from my vacation, but one of the coolest things that you can think about whenever you're working and trundling and plodding through your day is your next vacation. And who better to go on vacation with than GeekNationTours.com. Geek Nation Tours, of course, we are partnering with them for the big Gen Con extravaganza, and who knows, there still may be a couple spots open for that, so check it out. If you've been fighting it all this time and you feel your resistance finally crumbling, go ahead and check that out, see if you can get Terrace to let you on the trip.
Right.
But what they're booking now, what they're really excited about now, is Geeking Out with Miniatures in England tour.
2012.
It's 2012.
This September.
Right?
September.
It's always in the fall, and you've got all kinds of cool. You're going to be traveling around London, and then you're going to go hit all the cool GW hotspots. You're going to see a couple different museums. It is an awesome, awesome trip. I've talked to people who have been on this trip, and they have a blast. You've just got a busload of gamers traveling around England, looking at all the castles, playing games in the hotel rooms, playing games on the bus. It just sounds like an awesome, awesome time.
Oh, yeah, I'd love to go. That's fantastic.
Yeah, that is probably the one that I would go on. If I could go on any Geek Nation tour, I think I would go on the Geeking Out with Miniatures in England tour for sure.
For sure.
So check that out because that's coming up now. That's they're booking now.
GeekNationTours.com. Click on upcoming tours.
There you go.
You're listening to the D6 generation. Born to game.
Hey, welcome back, and we have Angelo with us. Hello, Angelo.
Hello, Greg.
And we've just spoken, of course, for about an hour already. So as everybody remembers, Angelo's got a ridiculously crazy schedule where he's running all over all the time, and that coincides, coincidentally, with an avalanche of emails we've recently received, which we get from time to time and have been getting for years, which are, how do you guys game all the time? You guys game so much. How do you fit it all in? And we figured that rather than just, sort of touch on that briefly, we're actually going to do a full segment today in this episode about how do you fit all these games in, and how do you experience these games like as an individual, and what do you try to get out of it? And so we've got some extensive notes that we're all going to try to meet as we go forward, and try to show you how we do it and how you might be able to adapt our ideas to your various lifestyles.
Right, just grab these ideas and go, or ignore them.
Right. Or ignore them completely.
Right.
Or just laugh mildly and shake your head at our weirdness and then go on and do whatever you were going to do anyway.
So first let's talk about, I found, probably the best way I game over the years, probably for the past, 15, 16, almost 20 years now, reliably, is having a regular gaming group night.
Right.
So, I don't know, Angelo, do you do that as well, or how do you handle your gaming that way?
I have a regular gaming group, but regular is a matter of definition. As much as I travel and work-related, family-related responsibilities, I've found a special way to get around it, and that is a group of dedicated gamers who come over on a Sunday night. Literally, we start gaming at 8:30 at night, play till 2 in the morning. Our goal is to meet once a month, but lately we've been able to get together a little more frequently than that.
Nice. So but basically the idea is the same, which is what we do is we have one night a week we meet, and it's the same night because we all are very busy schedules. And so what you have to kind of do is set the expectation not only with your friends who play, but you also have to give the ability for your spouse and your family and your work and other obligations you have to be able to sort of schedule around how you game. So it's not like your work's going to say, well, yeah, you can take whatever day you want off. But if I set an expectation that, with my wife, that every Thursday night, every Tuesday night, or whatever is the night I game, then we can avoid scheduling that night. Excuse me. So I don't have that complicated situation where I'm like, gee, honey, can I have this Tuesday night off? And next week it might be Thursday, and the following week it might be Monday. So having that scheduled time, I think, is really key.
Yeah, the benefit of scheduled time is you will avoid the no-shows and the conflicts. You plan for a 5-person game, everyone's excited, one person has a conflict, and you effectively impact 4 people's entertainment for the evening.
Right. Yeah, that's a big problem.
Yeah. I think the everything that you've just said, Russ, I agree 100%, which is why we do it that way. That having that one night also, it establishes in everybody's mind what's going on. So not only wives, but in your own head, okay, that's a day that I don't have to look in my notebook and figure, oh yeah, I've got a busy work week this week. Which day should I game? It's built into the schedule, so it's more likely that it's not going to be sacrificed when things get busy, unless things get really, really busy, which they do on occasion. But it really makes it more likely that you're going to be able to get that in than it would be if it was something that you had to go through all that extra effort to schedule on a regular basis.
Now, I've been fortunate enough to participate in several of your Tuesday night Myriad game nights, which I appreciated both of them immensely.
And we appreciated the check that you paid.
Oh, well, of course. I hope you haven't cashed that. The post date on that was 2017, and it'll be good by then.
Nice.
Do you guys come to game night prepared with who you're going to play and what you're going to play, or is it more you have the time and the place, and then the game comes together Tuesday at Myriad?
Oh, it's both.
It is both.
I would say you go in. Everything for me, everything fluctuates, as I've mentioned recently, and I go through a phase where I'm playing one game and a phase where I'm playing another game, and it also goes the same way with structuring the games. I'll go through a phase where I really want to know what I'm doing as soon as I hit Myriad so that I can get the most out of my evenings, and then I'll go through a phase where I just don't want to do all that time and effort. I just want to show up and play the games that everybody's playing. So I think that's another strength of having a regular game night with multiple groups of people that are going to be in attendance is you have that option.
And so what our group does, because of the limited amount of time we have, we really tend to focus strongly, not at the detriment of having fun and the social benefits of an in-person group, but we'll communicate up front on Facebook what we're going to play, confirm everyone's going to be there. Then we have it at the same location each time. Food is included, so people can come right over, and we will launch into filler games until the last arrival. We play some. You think about it, I feel like I get 8 hours of gaming in a 6-hour time slot.
Nice.
Because we're intensely prepared.
Yeah.
Well, ours is similar to that. I mean, we have, as Craig said, some folks come and they bring just a bag of games and they'll just sit around and, whoever wants to play this game can play with me. But other folks are more focused. And so, for example, it just happened to be just this week. I was looking at the BattleTech box set. And, I really want to play BattleTech again. So I just fired out, as you mentioned, Angelo, we have a Google group we use. So I fired out an email to the Google group saying, hey, I'm interested in BattleTech. Who's interested in playing BattleTech this Thursday? And sure enough, 3 or 4 or 5 people said, yeah, I'd like to play. And so we do all the planning in the group. What mechs you want to use, get all the pre-stuff done, get everybody signed up. We pick a start time. And then if you get there earlier, if some people can't make it as early, then the filler games come out. You play a few fillers. But then there's that one center game often of the evening where you're definitely going to commit to, this is the game we're going to play tonight with these guys. But other times, I don't feel like being the big organizer dude, and I'll just come in and I'll be like, I don't know what I'm playing tonight. I got a bag of games. I got miniatures. What's up? So it really depends. But we've got the dedicated night where where there's going to be a lot of us there. So, but I think you're right. It's key to have some sort of way to communicate easily with whether it's Facebook or Google Plus or Gmail or whatever you use, Yahoo groups, whatever, to make sure you can all quickly get in touch with each other and be like, hey, I'm going to make it this week. I'm going to be there. I haven't played StarCraft in a while. Who's up for the StarCraft board game, whatever, and you see if you get an interest.
Excellent. Now, I found a second alternative to the scheduled gaming group that's allowed me to get a record amount of gaming in a pretty short time, and that is a individual who's in my gaming group who has a fixed schedule that is very compatible to mine, and my family likes him a lot, so he's one of those welcome guests at the house. Makes it really easy on the drop of a hat to just have a gamer come over on a Saturday or on a Friday night, throw down for a few hours, and really not appear to impose on the family.
That's a good technique. That would be my brother. Same thing. So my brother and I get together. Our kids are completely compatible. So our kids will go off and play for hours, and they will just totally ignore us. So my brother and I will break out. Lately, it's been Summoner Wars. We'll break out whatever, great 2-player games. And it's nice. It's a good point, Angelo, because a lot of times if you have a regular gaming night, you're always breaking out the high player count games, right? You got a lot of guys coming. You're thinking, well, I got 6 people who want to play something. I got to find something for that. And sometimes you got these 2-player games you really like that are just sitting on the shelf gathering dust. And so having these other venues where it's like, hey, I can play a 2-player game now with this person really help out. So I played all the 2-player games with my brother. I played a lot of the high player count games at the more scheduled times.
And you mentioned the magic word kids. So I have 3 kids, my oldest being 9, and another alternative to gaming is bringing them, which I obviously hear you talking a lot on the show. I played probably 5 games of Pokemon over the weekend. I've got a table in my game room covered with her material for her new deck she's building.
Nice. Now, do you find that bringing your kids to your regular game night is what you do, or do you set aside separate time for gaming with your kids?
Usually separate time, but when they'll start arriving early, there's a couple of filler games, and really simple ones. Lately, Zombie Dice is a great example. That the kids will come in, the guys will be eating pizza, we'll play a round or 2 of Zombie Dice, the kids will get their fill, enjoy the evening, then they'll go to sleep, and we'll dive into the rest of the entertainment.
Yeah, I agree.
Very cool. Yeah.
So let's talk a little more. So let's see. What about gaming groups also here? Let's see. So we talked about setting up a certain play time. Now we normally play. Craig and I play at a store, but I think we've talked about this before on the show with Stephen Bonacorte. He comes on about planning your events and making sure you have plenty of food and all that kind of stuff. But I think a variety of games are important, as you mentioned, Angelo, right?
Yeah, I've had issues playing at stores. I do it quite a bit when I'm traveling. My local store, which is an excellent store, they'll do Wednesday night board game nights. If you don't get there at the right time and you have a limited window, you may find yourself watching a game or someone playing a pickup game of something that doesn't really get your attention, or worse, there's 3 players and everyone wants to play a 4-player game. So there's just you just don't know. It's a bit of a crapshoot. Or if it's a regular every other Sunday Flames of War group, for example, I got myself into it for a while, very quickly learned I was in over my head in a social commitment. It just makes it harder. So yeah. I've gone the other route and said, I have limited window. I'm going to ensure that I bring what I want to the table with people I want to play with. So I prefer to host my game group.
Yeah, so how do you deal with that? How do you deal? You had a couple good ideas here in the bullets about creating that social contract. We talked about that before on the show with Ross and RPGs, but it goes beyond just RPGs, right? You want to set that expectation with the kind of games you're going to play, what the commitment's going to be with the group. I tried to run a Descent campaign. I guess it was over a year ago now. We ran a really, really long Descent Road to Legend campaign, and right up front we said, look, this is for people who are committed to getting this done. Right, yeah. So you got to be committed to every other week being in this game, or we'll do that with RPGs sometimes too. Do you find that's a pretty effective way to do it?
That's the magic word. What you said, tell them up front. So I've had multiple game groups over the year. My current one is one that I'm really enjoying because we're like-minded gamers that will play anything from a hardcore RPG to a light, deck building game. We have a lot in common outside of our immediate games, so there's something to fall back on when there is a tense problem or there is conflict, which a gaming group is going to face. When we started meeting, we got together for a D&D throwback red box game, and it was meant to be one session. We had so much fun. The DM said, "Let's finish the module." My conflict was the problem, and I said, the only way I could do this is if you work around my rather ridiculous schedule.
Right.
And the GM said, so what works for you? And I said, how about one Sunday a month we start at 8 o'clock? And I'm thinking, that's the death knell, right? It's never going to happen.
Right, no one's going to agree.
They agreed to do it, and the game started. So when we finished that module, the conversation was, we've got like-minded gamers, nothing negative, let's do it again. So we'd have a couple board night games, and then we had a series of Warhammer Fantasy role-playing games. I'm up next on the DM circuit, and I'm going to do some Savage World. But we'll keep everything short, and everyone kind of opts into what you want to play. So as long as the group's getting something out of it, the attendance has been fantastic. We've not had a game night go south. We've had one person drop out. We've had a few people miss a session here or there, but it's the most consistent game group I've ever participated in.
Oh, excellent.
Nice.
And food helps. The cost of pizza is a small price to keep gamers coming back.
Right.
That is true. I think we've all paid that price from time to time.
Now, how do you keep the momentum alive? I mean, we've all been in these situations where we're trying to build some kind of epic, saga that just sounds awesome in the beginning, right? We get everybody excited about whether it's some kind of campaign for your miniature war game or just even a league or something long-term like Descent Road to Legend or a role-playing game campaign or even just a regular gaming night where you're trying to get it started and people are petering out. How do you keep things interesting and lively in your group?
So we plan for the Magpie Syndrome. If we're going to play Blood Bowl, we don't plan an entire series that ends with a Blood Bowl. We'll put one night together with some excitement, multiple games. I built a pitch, right, a real three-dimensional pitch for it, sent out photos on our Facebook page to drive some excitement, and then we got our gamers together. We had a great night, and then we slid that one back on the shelf. The Savage World campaign I'm planning is 4 sessions. Keep it simple, keep them tied together. Someone will agree to a 4-session game, while 6 months is a little intimidating.
Yeah, right. I found the exact same thing. We do Descent Road to Legend was the exception, but normally it's something like BattleTech. I'm not saying everybody sign up for playing a 8-hour session with heavy mechs. It's like everybody's going to grab a light mech. It's going to be a one-night thing. It's going to be about 3 hours. Let's try it out. If we like it, maybe we'll do it again. And even when we did Descent, it was every other week, so that people could get that off week to do something else. So if that new board game hotness is coming out and they just got to try it, they have an off week to do it, and then they come back to their regularly scheduled thing. I think it's important to, most of us gamers will sort of, we definitely want to get out there and try new things. So giving that window or keeping it short to try it out is definitely important.
Another two interesting points I think that have helped is, one is to find a gamer or group of gamers that are going to take the same thing out of the play that you are. If you're looking for a hardcore miniature gaming who wants to amp up for tournaments, that's not going to fit well with my group of casual gamers who are just as likely to get distracted by the new Resident Evil game and play that for a session or two.
Right.
So we just want to get together, have some fun, and when we get in our cars at 2 a.m. and people head for home, they just say, I had a good time and I'm looking forward to coming back. The other element is learning about people outside of the game group, and social media is great for that. I've met the families of my gamers. They know my family. So in the end, you feel like, and you are, with friends as opposed to strangers that happen to have the same hobby, and that creates a responsibility. They're going to call if they can't come, and they're going to move their schedule around because they're people that they like and they want to have a relationship with. And I find myself a lot more committed the more I get to know an individual to doing my part of the social contract.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely the truth. Yeah, I myself, I find that I enjoy gaming as an activity with my friends. And then I like meeting new people, of course, as I've done through the podcast all over the place. And Angelo, you're just one example, one fine example, I might add.
Well, I thank you.
And absolutely. And so I like bringing new people in and meeting them and playing with them also. And I really enjoy. I mean, I am now playing in a group that, like, if I think about the group that my go-to group is now probably about 15 people. And if I think about how many of those people I knew a year or 2 years ago, it's probably only like half or maybe 2/3 of them that I've known for a long time. And the others are new people that I meet as we go. But my enjoyment ultimately, although I enjoy playing with new people, my real enjoyment, the thing I look forward to on my Tuesdays, is I get to go hang out with my friends and do these things that I really enjoy with them. And that really takes care of a lot of the social contract element, as well as the scheduling element, where unless you have somebody in your group like Rafe, who we still love dearly, most of these people, like, you're like, okay, we're going to have this game, we're going to play, we're going to do a one-off session of an RPG. Almost all of them are always going to make it unless something drastic comes up.
So interesting you mentioned Rafe. So one of my game groups actually includes Rafe, and that is a virtual game group. Our primary mission was to play D&D 4th edition via Fantasy Grounds. And the plan was to play once a month, also on a Sunday night, and really kind of keep it simple. We've probably in the last 14 months, we've gotten maybe 6 D&D games in, but we've also gotten in 3 or 4 Mouse Guard games.
Nice.
So it's been an interesting shift. I find myself, now we have Christine, who's a new player in the group, and Doc and Greg, individuals I've never met other than Rafe, who I'm now talking to once a month. And as a matter of fact, at the end of this month, I'm going to New York City for a work meeting, and I've got on my calendar to fly in a day early just to have lunch with Greg and finally get to meet this gamer up close and personal.
Yeah, watch out if he offers you something to drink and it's clear.
Yeah, it feels a little bit like internet dating with a gamer. I'm very uncomfortable with this whole thing. But
I was just referring to the fact that the guy likes his hard liquor, but you go wherever you want with that.
Yeah, wow. He definitely does. You learn a lot about a person in a few 4-hour online sessions.
I don't doubt it.
Yeah, I think you're right. It's important to have the friendships. You can form friends there. But also it's great to meet new people as well. And one of the things you'd mentioned to Angelo when we talked about this idea for this segment was the idea that, how do you, if it's so important to the social contract and the group dynamics, as both of you mentioned, that to play with reliable friends and close friends, because it'll, it's easier to get them, to get that contract going. How do you deal with the idea that you're at a session where it's someone else's play group? I know, Angelo, you do a lot of traveling. You go up to stores and You go in there and you maybe go in there on a Tuesday night, like in our group or somewhere else, and you try to come in to that circle of people, friends who know each other, and get in on that gaming. Or even more, a good example is at a con, right? We've all gone to cons before. You're at a con and you're playing games with people you've never met before. How do you handle the experience of I'm in someone else's, backyard and trying to play games with them? How do you approach that, Angelo?
I do get an opportunity to do it quite a bit, and a few commonalities exist in game groups, and that's usually gamers are, by definition, they're social individuals who want to spread their hobby. It's usually a very inclusive group. So I spent a couple days at the Fantasy Flight Center, which is a great example of this. I go in, I always tell myself up front, I have no expectations. Whatever game they're playing, I'm fortunate that I'll enjoy playing anything at the tabletop. It doesn't matter whether it's cribbage, descent. If it's a game, I want in. And I'll take a seat, I'll watch what's going on, I'll have a few good-natured conversations. Almost inevitably, the question will come, do you want to sit in? If not, they're forming a group, do the toss your name in, see if they're willing to take a player. Set the expectation up front to yourself that you're not really there guaranteed a game. Set time aside. Most gamers will bring you in, and then there's going to be a bond between those gamers. And I've seen people do this well. I've seen people do this badly. You're act as if you're a guest in someone's home. You're a guest in their game group. Mm-hmm. Hold up your end of the conversation. Be involved. But it's dangerous to get too casual, to get too comfortable, to try to understand the inside humor, and really show the appreciation through your actions. I've found gamers starting another game and inviting me back. I played with one game group. There were 3 individuals. They were expecting their 4th at the FFG Center. We played several games together. When their 4th showed up, they changed the lineup of the games they were going to play to include me as very great hospitality. We just played game after game. I was with these guys for about 6 hours over the course of the evening, and just they made me a part of the game group in a very short time.
That is awesome.
That is awesome.
Miniature games are harder. If you show up with a miniature game, every game group has different points or different house rules or even different competition levels. If they have very casual rules, you need to understand that up front. I've learned to ask about house rules and always kind of give credit to the house. That you took your hand off it, you already moved that pea stuff doesn't fly when you're playing with strangers in a strange land.
Right. Well, it's funny you mentioned miniature war games. And that's definitely true. I mean, all miniature war games have that feeling, even in different play groups. Even maybe in the same store on different game nights. With different miniature games, the players might have different feelings. But I've also found it in board games too. Sometimes, I mean, I have 3 or 4 major groups of friends that I play games with semi-regularly. Some of them I play with every week. Some of them I play with, once a quarter when someone has a gaming party. And there's one group in particular that has a totally different approach to metagaming than all the other groups I play in. And it's a really funny experience because they don't. It's almost like some groups like to be really quiet at tables and really focus and no jocularity. There's other games that are like the rules are just there and this is all social. And so you do have to find what that game group's expectation is. And you also kind of have to hold back. I'm a very loud and boisterous person. And sometimes I have to remember that, just being loud and boisterous at a board game isn't always everybody's cup of tea. Sometimes they get a little, they like the quiet time to concentrate. So you do have to sort of sit down and be very polite and almost do nice dinner table manners for a while and kind of figure out what's going on in the rest of the group.
Well, and that goes down to the analysis paralysis. And I had a chance with you guys. We were playing a couple games I'd never played before, so I was learning the rules to. I don't remember the name of it. The pirate game that you guys taught me with
Merchants
trading.
and Marauders.
Merchants and Marauders.
Nice game.
A relatively crunchy game. Fun, right? Well done, and you guys did a great job of explaining it. But when it comes around the table to your turn, you need to be aware that if you don't have the same experience as everyone else, you don't want to lock up the game, spend 3 times as long. You're there to have fun. There's no money riding on it.
Right.
Take a chance with your gut, play it, and if it turned out to be a bad strategy, you had fun or you didn't. So playing new games in particular takes a little extra responsibility.
Yeah,
right.
That's true. Nice. So that's a pretty good chunk on how to get time to game by working with gamers and getting your own gamer group going. But there's some other approaches we've used, too, to find extra time. And one of the ways I know that Angelo you use, and I use quite a bit, too, is playing remotely. So playing via some kind of technology to make it so you can sync up with your friends but not have to be in the same room, which is great for, especially if you have a family.
I'm going to go get some trail mix.
Because, well, it's Craig's leaves. Because oftentimes, right, you're at home, your wife's out somewhere, you've got the kids that night, your kids are in bed, you can't leave the house, but you're free to game, right? So what do you do? And what are some of your favorite ways to handle that, Angelo?
So I'm gonna put this in two different camps, and one is the traditional electronic gaming, which obviously is not what we're here to talk about, and that's you sit in front of an Xbox, you play Skyrim or Call of Duty. That's not what this is. This is an e-version of an analog game, if you will. And I've had great luck with this, and it's getting better every day. Vassal is the big engine. Like you, I grew up playing games with my brother. He lives in Ohio. I live in Texas. So we discovered Vassal, and I probably play 90% of my 40K games on Vassal against him or several other friends. And it is amazing. We throw Skype, we talk socially, we play our games, we can pre-build our armies, you can save them, and honestly, you get a game in faster.
Right.
Now, it's not the same experience, but it is closer to it than playing a first-person shooter on an Xbox would be.
Right.
I've played BattleTech, War Machines, Hordes, Zombies, recently Summoner Wars, all across Vassal. Funny story about War Machine. I'm looking at a shelf full of miniatures. Some partially painted, some not. I've never taken one of those War Machine miniatures to the table.
Wow.
Every game of War Machine I've ever played has been on Vassal. I am really looking forward to Adepticon this year.
Nice.
I'm actually going to play with real resin at Adepticon for War Machine.
Angelo, we'll have to schedule a game, you and me, buddy. Let's go at it.
I love it.
Awesome.
I'm probably bringing Kador. I'm going to bring somewhere. We're just going to bring either 15 or 20 points. Keep it real small. And
my
simple.
old foe. I'm Signar, baby. Let's do it. I'm ready.
Excellent.
All right. So, and I've done the same thing. I've played with some of the online different tabletop engines like Vassal. I like. There's another great engine out there I've been using a lot lately. I'm having a blast with the Blood Bowl game by Cyanide Studios, which is available on Steam. Is a full animated, really cool computer version of, but exactly rule for rule of the Blood Bowl board game with all 20 teams, and it's really nice. So we've been having a great time playing Blood Bowl virtually, and with many of the same people in our gaming group. So it's a 16-person league right now. Almost all of them are from our weekly gaming group. But one of the folks, we're trying to get to 16, and we're a person short, and we had a D6G listener jump in. And he's down in who knows where. So it's good fun. So it's just a great way, again, to get more gaming in, find a time. The kids are in bed, the wife's out, you can get some gaming in without having to go up to the store.
I've played Blood Bowl. I play that one usually on the Xbox, but I have played the PC version. Magic the Gathering, Pokemon Online is
My
a
kids
great
love that
tool.
one. Yep.
Now, the iPad is blowing this space wide open. So recently I downloaded Ascension. Have you ever played Ascension, the deck building game?
I have, yes, and I have the iPad version. Yes.
So this was one of those backward purchases. So I found it on the iPad. I bought it, played it, really enjoyed it, so I ordered the card version. Introduced a friend of mine to the game. He bought it for the iPad. So we've played it both in person electronically, in person on paper, and remotely. Yesterday, I was sitting in the waiting room at a doctor's office. He sent me a game request for Ascension. I brought it up, and we literally played 2 games remotely across the iPad, unscheduled, while I was waiting to go in for my doctor's appointment.
That's awesome. See, and that's the same thing, like the Ticket to Ride game for the iPad and the iPhone plays the same way. You can play it either by passing the phone around, which I do with my family a lot when we're waiting for a dinner table or for waiting for a movie, but also you can play with your friends, I call it asynchronously, right? So you can do a move, then he gets flagged as doing a move, and you go back and forth. It's a great way, and there was a great article recently on the Penny Arcade News site with an interview with the CEO of Days of Wonder, and he was talking about how the iPad Ticket to Ride game is spurring the actual board game sales. And
there's no doubt. I've played Ticket to Ride on the iPad. I've never played it analog. Puerto Rico's another one. Small World I played on the iPad first and then bought the board version. That's My Fish. I played with my kids on the iPad, bought the paper version. And then recently read the announcement that they're planning on putting Summoner Wars on the iPad.
Yes. And Eclipse is coming out on the iPad also.
Oh, excellent!
And what's great about this, and it's a great way to sample games too. Not to get too off topic here, because the iPad and iPhone versions of these games are like $2, $3, $4 tops. I think Small War might be $6, which is still a very small sliver of the actual board game, which is $30, $40, $50, $60, right? So it's a great way to sample the game, try it out, and then if you're like, I would love to have this in my board game collection, then you go buy it. So it's
now. I know this is going to push Craig over the edge, so I'll be gentle. I'll be gentle.
Oh, bring it, buddy.
I always prefer my tabletop games, but one of my gamers and I, Bobby and I, are planning a completely virtual game night in person. We're going to put the iPads up on the large screen, and we're going to play a series of board games, all electronically, not to create a new paradigm, but just to experience it. We did a test, and one night we played 2 games of Ascension, and it took about 20-25 minutes per game start to finish, so about an hour of Ascension. We then played 2 games on the iPad, and we played less in both in 15 minutes. So it's not quite the same experience, but it is amazing the time difference.
Okay, well, see, until you put in the time difference thing there, I was going to suggest that we all get together face-to-face on a table and play a play-by-mail RPG, because that would be fun, too. But then you might...
I'm in for that.
You're not allowed to talk. You just all you can do is write your actions.
Yeah, I think that'd be slower.
Yeah, I think so. Then he mentioned all the time and blah, blah, blah. So actually it has a point. So
one thing that's nice, my girls, and this is sort of an aside, too, but same idea, we have quite a few board games on the Xbox also. So we can play Ticket to Ride and Settlers of Catan and Carcassonne all on the Xbox on the big television on the wall. Everybody grabs a controller. And you're thinking, why do that? You have the board game. True, but again, the Xbox version is $9 and the board game is $25 or $30.
Well, there's that too.
But second of all, scoring farmers in Carcassonne is one of the most complicated things in gaming today. And what's great about it is it does all that for you. So again, all the rules are hidden. The controls are easy to use, so you can actually play with younger players and they still get the game. They still enjoy it, and there's none of that complicated explaining. So it's a great way to get. Kind of goes back to how do you get more gaming in. That's one of the ways you can get more gaming in with family or maybe younger players, in addition to just trying out new experiments like Angelo's doing there with that paradigm shift.
and the rules are on rails. So the iPad taught my 4-year-old the rules for, hey, that's my fish. Mm-hmm. But then now we break it out on the table, and he understands he's going to start on a single fish tile. He has to move in straight lines. So it's a piece of the process, but it is far from a replacement to it.
Now, something I just tried that was brand new for the first time this past weekend. I had a listener from, I think I said last episode, I said it was Kentucky, but it's actually Tennessee, so my apologies to our friends from Tennessee there. He emailed me out of the blue and was like, I want to play Mouse Guard RPG with you. I've got 2 kids, a 13-year-old and 9-year-old. Would you be interested in DMing the game for us, and we'll play over Connect video conference? And I thought, well, that sounds like a lot of fun, and my girls would love that. So we got our Mouse Guard characters, and we did it, and we just, one Sunday afternoon, we connected our Connects and turned it on, and it was fantastic. It was like they're in the same room with us. We could see all their faces, and the Connect is a really cool thing. I don't know if you guys have played with video conference on Connect much, but the camera shoots the entire room, but the system is smart enough that when one person talks, it crops down and sort of zooms in on their face.
Wow, that's crazy.
So it's like zooming in, and like they can see the DM talking, and then when it pulls back when several people start talking at once, and the kids might get excited and start acting out their moves, and it pulls back, and you can see them jumping around and acting out their moves. And we had an absolute blast. It was a great experience. I got to meet a whole new family I never would have met if it wasn't for the podcast and this interesting opportunity. And it was really a lot of fun. And I could think it would be fabulous with other players, like you mentioned, Angelo, if you're going to play with people like your brother or something from far away. It would be tricky with a board game because it's hard to see the pieces from across the room. But if it's a pure storytelling experience like an RPG that doesn't require a battle board or anything, that's a great thing to try out. I'd highly recommend it. It's a real great way to get a little more gaming in.
Did it feel like you were in a video?
Like, what do you mean in a video?
Like with it cropping and editing and zooming in, and I mean, it sounds really neat. Did it? Was it like you were like? Well, I mean, it sounds very sci-fi-ish. Did it feel that way?
It's very sci-fi because the screen is split in half. So half the screen is what they're seeing of your room, and the other half of the screen is what you're seeing of their room.
Oh, wow, yeah.
So it feels like you're in one of those like CNN or Fox News video chats with the two faces on either side of the screen.
Oh, very nice.
But it's very cool, and it's got built-in microphones. So nothing you have to do except as long as both sides have an Xbox to connect and an Xbox Live account, you're in.
So I'm not trying to one-up you.
Yeah.
But getting ready for Mouse Guard with Rafe, I actually built a animatronic scarecrow of Rafe to sit at the table. I mounted the speaker where his mouth is and put cameras in the eyes. Literally, our first game, 5 minutes into it, the scarecrow got up, which is amazing because I didn't put any motors in its legs, and he began chasing squirrels around the backyard.
Nice.
Completely failed process.
You have to call up Engelstein and get him in on this for his robotics there. That'd be fantastic.
I don't know what happened. It was like he was running around. It was crazy.
That's awesome.
He took all the nuts out of the tree.
You cannot take the Rafe out of the robot.
No, you can't.
Yeah.
So one other thing we should mention, we talked about how you play with your friends when you're not with your friends. Another thing, and I know, Craig, you do this, how do you stay in the hobby when you're not able to game? And there's some really great options here. One of them is especially one of the great things about miniature war games, and I've talked about this for years, and Craig's a great example of this, is when you're not with your friends, you can start cranking out things for the next time you game, whether it's building terrain or painting. What are some of the other things you do, Craig?
There's building army lists is awesome. Mm-hmm. I mean, how many of us have spent hours upon hours upon hours, whether it's army builder or just with an Excel spreadsheet or whatever. And it's a lot of fun because in your head you're thinking about all these different combinations and you're thinking about what could happen in the battlefield, and as I'm doing it, I'm thinking, oh yeah, I've got those pieces for a model, or I'm going to have to pick up this piece to build that, and it really just keeps those processes working while you're away from the hobby. For instance, like when I'm doing the play or whatever, and I don't have a lot of time, and my schedule is maybe in the afternoon I have some free time, but I'm never going to be able to make it at night for 2 months. I can do that. I paint a lot, I do army building a lot, and I love making terrain. And so there's all kinds of stuff as a miniature gamer that you can do when you don't have a lot of time to exercise the social element of it. And I mean, with board games, you can do the same, right? I mean, Russ, you're like the king of the painted board games now.
Oh, well, I don't know about that, but I do like to organize my board games and get them all ready to go.
Organizing is your big thing,
and get the little boxes in there and stuff. And I am working on, and I do think about it, though. Like, I'm working on my big Eclipse project, and I think about, this would be great to bring to a convention and break it out and show all my friends. And so there are a lot of things you can do to sort of keep your head in the game, pardon the pun, while you're not able to actually play. Angelo, what are some examples of how you keep yourself excited?
I'll do a lot of what you mentioned. I love terrain building. I love painting. I've also found that I get a lot of enjoyment out of single-player games. So the Lord of the Ring card games, playing Runebound versus the timer to see how quickly you can play it, FFG's Death Angel are all excellent. Lately, I've taken my hand at writing fiction. Not all of us are very good at it. So we'll play our role-playing game, and then I'll write the story from the perspective of my character.
Oh, nice.
And then share it with the group that played. It does two things. It allows me to immerse myself in the game one more time, but then it creates energy for the next game.
Oh, yeah.
And that really has been, I think, part of keeping our story going. What's interesting is my character's personality has changed because I'm less serious when I'm writing the fiction, so he comes across as a little bit more flighty. Now I play him similar to the way I've written in his perspective. Cool. Yeah, he's turned into a bit of kind of an idiot, really. It gives me one more point of impact with my hobby. And then, of course, listening to podcasts. As much as I travel, listening to you guys or another gamer podcast. I've been listening to a Blood Bowl podcast, learning about some of the intricacies of the game, all really keep the hobby alive when we're not gaming.
Yeah, you mentioned after-action, fiction or after-action reports, and we've done, Craig and I have done that for a long time, and Craig is really the master at it, but I've always enjoyed it as well. And even with our Blood Bowl league now, it's funny, we're playing the computer game, right? And you think that the computer game would be like somehow less of an immersive experience, but no, we have players who are taking very, very copious notes. We have a tight email group that's only these people, and they'll write 2, 3, 5, 10-page, play-by-play reports of their games, complete with screenshots. And here's what I did. Can you believe I fumbled the ball here? And the whole thing with player names and numbers and everything built in. And they're taking it's really a great way to just and it's great to read those. So it's a whole week you have a whole week to play one game. So you play your game and you're waiting for the next week. And now you're getting these great emails in on Saturday night when Dave and so-and-so played, and Sunday night when Ian and whatever played, and you're getting these great, nice lists, and you get to read them, and it keeps you in the game and thinking about when do I get to play next, and what next the upgrade I'm going to get for my players. So it's really a fun way to keep the game alive, even if you're playing an electronic version of a game.
So my single most entertaining, immersive project was for miniature gaming. In the height, my kids were young, work was out of control. I was literally lucky to get one good weekend of gaming in a year. So my wife would very, very politely for my birthday, she would fly in my old game group and we would play.
Nice.
What I did one year is right after that, I said, we're going to do this again next year. Let's all pick a new army and kind of that tale of four gamers that GW is famous for.
Yeah.
We did that for the entire year. We picked our armies, we shared them. We'd paint a unit, we would share it electronically.
Nice.
And we had a month where we had to do objectives, a month where we had to do a display board. And then we wrote the scenarios and we shared them. So when we got together for that weekend, it was 12 months in the making, painted armies, objectives. Everybody was raring to go. It was probably the best weekend of gaming I've ever been involved in.
That sounds awesome.
And that's really, Angelo, you're touching on something that's a very close-knit group of gamers, which is fantastic. But I think that's one of the reasons that so many players get into these really mega tournaments like Adepticon and the grand tournaments and things. Because a lot of people, the GTs or the Adepticon is their biggest moment of gaming in the year, and they work the entire year for that event, getting their team ready, getting their painting ready, they're sharing it with their team, they're on the forums for the convention saying, here's what I'm working on, here's my latest model. And for them, it's that entire social experience of sharing what they're working with all their other gamer friends or people that don't even know they're going to the con. And then you get to the con, you get to look at what you did. And, there's the guy's army I saw on the forum. It's awesome looking, and you kind of share your experience.
Yeah, matter of fact, that's our highlight of Adepticon is the team tournament.
Oh, yeah.
For just that reason. We're not top third players, right? We're lucky to come in the middle of the pack, but we love it. It's a chance to get great games in with great opponents, and then we're going to play BattleTech on Friday and play some War Machine on Sunday. I'm going to bring Summoner Wars. I'm going to bring Russian Crush. So we've got an entire weekend. We're all going to fly to Chicago early and get together. It really becomes the social event of the year for us.
Very nice.
That's cool.
Awesome. So before we run out of time here, I thought maybe we would touch a little bit on some of the games. One more way you can squeeze in a little more gaming time is to game with your kids. We talk about a little bit about how we block times out so we can game by ourselves. But how do we? What's a good way to bring gaming to your family and to your kids so you're actually sharing more time with your family and still getting into the hobby you love? What are some games you've had really good success with, Angelo?
I misstepped in this in the beginning, trying to get the kids to play my games. Mm-hmm. And at a very young age, I was interested in some of the crunchier games. So I'm taking their turns, I'm taking my turns. They barely paid attention. Once I figured out it really wasn't about my experience, but the kids and making it an event, we switched over. Like I said, Pokemon. The D&D board games are fantastic for kids. Zombie dice. I have the worst losing record in Wings of War you can imagine against my daughter. She is unstoppable in that game. We're looking forward to the Star Wars X-Wing versus TIE Fighter variation of it to come on here later this summer.
Yeah. Yeah, I think we have the same experience. I found that if you get games that your kids really want to play, and they don't, it's funny, they'll go to the game store, and if you take them to, Target or Walmart and they see the My Little Pony Monopoly version or whatever, they'll say they want that. But if you get them into some of these little more, niche family games, like you mentioned, like That's My Fish, or some of the ones we talked about on the show before, like Fish Eat Fish, which is another great one, and the D&D board games, they'll really enjoy them and they'll really get into them. And suddenly you're finding you're really sharing the experience. And the kids, I don't know if you found this, Angelo, but my kids love to beat me at a game. They just get really excited about beating Daddy.
Yeah, my kids, I lose so much, my kids take it for granted. We're going camping next weekend.
Nice.
And we've already started kind of preparing the games. She's building her Pokemon decks. I'm putting the board games in a stack. And as a matter of fact, Dungeon Run is going to come out, and I think it'll be an excellent one that the kids can play, and I am certain that the gang-up factor of Dad in that one is going to be pivotal.
Yes, yeah. Yeah, I found they always gang up with Mom against me every time. It's like clockwork, and you got to be careful with like Small World and stuff. They're all over me. It's just ugly.
Now, I've not had a lot of luck getting games to the table with my wife. Though what I had earlier when we were dating, kind of pre-kids, is the hobby aspect of the game.
Oh.
She would sit and paint armies. She loved building terrain. We literally would have whole weekends where we'd work on my siege castle, which I'm looking on here. My wife painted. So there was a great time where she was down in my hobby, involved. She would come watch the games. Didn't want to play. Didn't have that competitive, aspect, and really didn't want to be across the table from me because we probably would still be married if we were. But the hobby part of it has been excellent.
Nice. Yeah. Nicole likes, I think, Craig and I have had obviously more success. I think Karen's a pretty big hardcore gamer, right, Craig? She plays a lot of the...
I wouldn't say hardcore. She hasn't played a lot of games in the last couple of years since the When Wives Attack kind of went off.
She hasn't played Quarriors lately?
We've played 2 games of Quarriors in the last 6 months.
Oh, nice. So she doesn't do much. I thought she did more gaming than that.
No. We haven't done a lot. I mean, we did some gaming when we went to New York with Angelo's help.
There you go.
And we did some Quarriors then, and then we did some Quarriors again recently. About a month ago, we played 2. But other than that, that's the only time we've ever played Quarriors. Yeah. So she likes games, and she would like to play more games, but we're just so busy now with everything that's going on.
Yeah, it's hard to
I mean, coincidentally, that happens to coincide with when the baby was born, pretty much.
Yes.
So that's going to have an impact right there. But, I mean, she loves games, and, I could probably get her into more games if I had more time to do that.
Yeah,
but anyway, I know Nicole plays lots of games.
She does, but only I found she doesn't like the marathon gaming sessions. She's not really big into. She doesn't want to sit down and game from noon till 7 at night.
Right.
She's off. She's very excited to she'll play. Survive, Escape from Atlantis is a great one. That's a great one for kids too, by the way. She'll play that one in a session. She'll play any session under 2 hours. She generally likes. And I've got her some success with even some crazier games as long as the theme's right for her, like the Star Trek Fleet Captains and Battlestar Galactica. But it can't. She does not. I found most women I've met don't seem to like the all-day sessions. There are some, but I think they rather prefer a game here and there. They still like them, but they just don't. They like to break it up a little bit. At least that's my experience.
And there's definitely understanding what the conflict someone's willing to face. You mentioned Survive. My mom was in town, so we played a 4-player game of Survive. My mom, who is not a gamer, Italian immigrant, so she has a very different mindset. And my 2 kids, myself, played and Survive. The girls ganged up on Mom and sunk a couple of her meeples. And they were almost thrown out of the family. She's telling me, why are they ganging up on me? What did I do? They're killing me. It was just one of those events where halfway through I thought, all right, we got to leave Mom alone, guys. Make myself the target. And she squeaked off a 3rd place win and then brought it up several more times during the visit.
Wow. Yeah, I'm always last place in Survive because my whole family turns against me on that too. I don't know what that means exactly, but anyway, so those are some tips. I think hopefully you find them helpful to try to find more time in gaming. Any parting thoughts here, guys?
No, just I can't I can't stress enough how much this time and effort is worth it, though. I don't know what my life would be like if I didn't have my friends around and the gaming that we do and that whole focus of my life that gives a little bit of a escapism to, especially when things start to get really busy.
It becomes easier if you know what it is about games that you want. Is it a specific game? Is it a specific companionship? Is whatever aspect of the game, and then when you can distill that, it becomes easier to fill the gaming need and use your time very wisely. I was chasing gaming for the sake of gaming, and then because it was all miniatures all the time, and really I have you guys to thank for introducing me to board games. And it's really changed what I get out of gaming and how I can get them to the table. And I feel like I'm a much more grounded person because I get my gaming in small, logical doses versus 4-hour marathon events that crush my family.
Right. Which is always something to be avoided at all costs.
Yeah, divorce lawyers are expensive.
They are.
You're listening to the D6 generation. Born to game.
Is that Vic the Viking? Vic the Viking's so hot!
Vikings are coming! The Vikings are coming!
I love you, Vic!
You're so cool. So now it's time to talk about Vic at the War Store, bringing the war to your door since 1999, and that's a decade and more.
Yeah, they have the greatest. I mean, if it's hard to find miniatures, the War Store has it.
They
do. Make them awesome. Like stuff from the Perry Brothers. They've got a bunch of stuff in early March right now. As we're recording this, they had a big announcement. They got all the Perry Brothers plastics in stock now.
Oh, yeah. We're talking. There's some really cool looking. The plastic Napoleonics you're talking about. You're talking about terrain. They've got a medieval cottage. Mm-hmm. And, of course, they've got the new mounted men-at-arms. They're like, the classic armored knights from 1450 to 1500, but they could stand into all kinds of fantasy games.
Yeah, exactly.
And they look beautiful, and they're 12 for a lot less than you'd paying for 5 somewhere else.
Mm-hmm. That's prices on the net.
Course, they talk about all the new Games Workshop releases that they get. The Hive Tyrant, the Tyrannofax, the Space Wolf, Thunderwolf Cavalry, the Fenrisian Wolf Pack, which I got to check out. And, of course, the Dystopian Wars rulebook. They may be the only place right now in America where you can do the pre-order for the rulebook and get that cool submarine for free.
Right.
They got all kinds of cool little deals going on. And, of course, we were big fans of the game A Call to Arms when it was Babylon 5. And A Call to Arms, the Starfleet rulebook, is they just got a restock of all that, so you can check that out. They are the place to go for just really good service and selection on the net. They've got all kinds of cool stuff. And they're just the place to go.
Yeah, exactly. For any miniature stuff you need, check out thewarstore.com.
Welcome to another edition of the Hollywood Minute. Today's Hollywood Minute is brought to you by Robotech Battles is being considered for production. Tell Palladium Books on Facebook that you want the game and miniatures. And for all you Robotech information, visit robotechbattles.blogspot.com. For today's Hollywood Minute, we're going to do something I've never, ever done in 99 episodes of the Hollywood Minute, this being the 99th. It's never been scripted. But today, after making my huge Twitter announcement of producing, filming, editing, choosing to jump into the foray of a documentarist. For those of you not following my Twitter, I decided probably about a year ago that I wanted to try my hand at a documentary. And it scares the bejesus out of me. It scares the bejesus out of me for 2 reasons. I'm not a filmmaker. I didn't go to film school. I am falling under the belief that by watching documentaries, I can make one. Hopefully, this project, its main goal is I will produce one. But its main goal is I want to go through the process of producing one. And I'm excited to see Going Cardboard is out there. There's a cool LARPing one called Dark On. That's actually a couple years old. But what prompted me to do this, and what scares the bejesus out of me, is I won't have my compatriots, that is to say Russ and Craig. I mean, the D6 generation was a huge success for me because of those two. This one I'm doing by myself, and yeah, I've got some help. I've met a couple people, Stan and Carlina, up in Portsmouth, New Hampshire, who are going to help me produce this and use their expertise in both documentaries. Stan's produced, I think, a couple documentaries. One of them's called The Downline, and Carlina has most recently helped get off the air a documentary about musicians called In Danger of Being Discovered. These were both made out of films and filmmakers out of Portsmouth, New Hampshire. And you might even hear on the Hollywood Gamer podcast show, I'm not sure what order I'll air this, but I've got director Michael Venn coming in to talk to us about filming his documentary called In Danger of Being Discovered. If it wasn't for moving my office from Manchester to Portsmouth, where there's the pretty live and vibrant film scene, I wouldn't have had the sack to, talk to them and do it. But what ended up happening was I talked to them, and I also talked to another filmmaker. His name is Chase Bailey, and he introduced me to Michael, and I said, "Hey, this is what I want to do. Am I crazy? Am I able to do this?" And ironically, they handed me a book about making a film written by a lawyer out of New Hampshire. So I just felt like that all of the signs were pointing to me that if done the right way, I could do it. And so that was one of my reasons for stepping down from the D6G in episode 90. Now, did I want to, at that moment, was I already planning a documentary? No. I just knew that I wanted to go in some different directions. I knew I wanted to build my practice back up, which has been going. But I also knew that I didn't want to just do my practice, and I wanted to do something else creative. And so, when you heard me do the Twitter announcement, I was kind of in research mode for a couple months, and then I decided, I'm going to pull the trigger on it, and I'm going to work on this project. You heard it here, folks. What are we going to do? What's my goal? I've got several goals. They're not all narrowed down, and I'm going to need you listeners to help me out. I'm making a great call out to all of you, because you guys are going to be an integral part of this documentary. This is my idea. I'm tired of going to cocktail parties, and you know how we talk about being in the gamer closet? Well, I'm tired of going to cocktail parties, and people say, "Hey, Rafe, what do you do for fun?" And I go, "I'm a gamer." And it's okay. They say, "Oh, video games, like Call of Duty?" And I go, "No, I like Xbox. I play that." But now I'm talking about more like European-style board games, or sometimes they're called designer board games. This is what I'm saying to people at cocktail parties, and they just look at me with that blank look in their role. And I say, I don't usually bring up role-playing games, but if you stand at a party and you bring up role-playing games, what is that? We've talked about this on the D6G. What do people say? They say, "Oh, you mean like you kind of wear armor and you do those like foamed arrow things?" And inside my head, I'm like, "No, that's a LARPer." And like, "Well, tell me more about these board games. Is that like Sorry Sliders?" And I'm like, "No, these are games you can't really buy in the box stores." And have you guys heard of Settlers of Catan? No. Carcassonne? No. I'm like, okay, well, there's kind of these European style and games, and did you guys ever play Risk? Oh yeah, we played Risk. And so that's their closest nexus is Risk. And the goal of this documentary is to just shine a little bit of a light on that, so that we gamers can be at a cocktail party out in the quote normal world, and they'll finally have a reference point for what a LARPer is, what a European-style board game is. That's my term for the type of board games that we play, and it includes Ameristyle games, what a CCG is, what people are really doing when they dress up and go to conventions. They might not, know it's called cosplay per se, but knowing that if I go to Gen Con to play board games, that doesn't mean I'm dressing up as a stormtrooper. That's a different hobbyist. Knowing what a miniature gamer is, and knowing that an RPGer is a tabletop role-playing game made with pen and paper, pencil and dice. It's not dressing up in chainmail. Not that there's anything wrong with that. So that's my goal, is I want to bring this, I want to shine a light on it, I want to showcase what being a gamer means to us. And I want to do that by showcasing a LARPer, a board gamer, a CCGer, a cosplayer, a mini-gamer, and an RPGer. I might not have all of those people, but what I'm looking to do, and this is the official call out here, is what I'm looking to do is I want video submissions. If you think you want to help me tell this tale, if you think you'd be a good example of these different areas, a LARPer, a board gamer, a CCG, or a cosplayer, a minigamer, and an RPGer, I want you to put a video together of yourself. I want you to go ahead and upload it to YouTube. And I want you to go ahead and email me at rafe@jimmydjango.com. That's Rafe, RAEF, @jimmydjango.com. and that'll be for all things for the documentary. It does not have a title. I'm calling it the Jimmy Django Project, and that's why I want it going there. That way I can keep kind of my comments as Hollywood of the D6G central to that, and I can keep the movie focused over there on Jimmy Django. I'm also going to make the blog, jimmydjango.com, is going to be the source point for all that, and I got a Twitter feed, jimmydjango2.com, to be the Twitter feed for everything going to be about the documentary. I've already priced it out. So again, the goal is for me to go to location, film 4 or 5 people at location, and then wrap up and film at Gen Con. At this rate, it'll probably be getting just some footage and hopefully meeting the people that I choose over their video submissions at this Gen Con in August 2011 and do the bulk of the filming in 2012. I thought about trying to rush it and do the bulk of the filming this Gen Con, but I don't want to rush it. And that's for 2 reasons. One is I'm really looking forward to taking a break from my podcasting duties and going to Gen Con as just a fan. Again, that doesn't mean you can't come up and say hi to me. Absolutely, you can do that, but I won't have any podcasting duties per se for the D6 generation. This way I can kind of just hang out with friends, do some role-playing myself, do some gaming myself, not really have any responsibility. I may take a little handheld, take what they call B footage, B-roll, which is stuff you kind of use for backdrops, or might even not even do that. I might even just want to try to meet people out of Gen Con that we'll try to feature in the film, in the documentary. I'll get into more of the details of that, how to make a submission going forward here. But that's my goal, guys. And what I also hope to do is give you little audio diary blogs like Captain Supplementals on Star Trek. I'm going to post those up on the Hollywood GPS. The Hollywood GPS is still going on. Hey, I got 3 shows in. I got a 4th with Michael Venn, and I've got a 5th on the Hollywood GPS with David Peterson, and he is the author and creator of Mouse Guard. That's going to make a nice couple of bookends. We'll have Luke Crane, which you can listen to, and I recommend you listen to over at the D6G. And we'll have David Peterson of Mouse Guard, the actual comic illustrator and author and writer, over at the Hollywood GPS. So I'm still gonna do the show, and that show's gonna feature. My goal is to do 8 episodes. So we're going along there, and people seem to really like the entrepreneurial bent, kind of focusing on. I did a couple comic. I did one comic one with Ian, and that's because I was jonesing to talk comics. But I think people like the kind of interviewing the entrepreneur in the different areas. That's pretty cool. So Michael Venn will fit that as documentarist, although it is in the music industry. But that's okay, because I envisioned the GPS to be more than just gaming. I wanted it to cover anything creative, anything involved with the arts and entertainment. Obviously with a focus on games, but I wanted it to be broader. So we're still going to be doing that. And okay, so how do you submit? So again, what I want you to do is, if you think you want to, put together like a 3-minute clip, 5-minute clip, focus on being clear, concise, why you think you'd make a good example. The goal is I want you guys to help me show the world what it means to be a LARPer, a board gamer, a CCGer, a cosplayer, a minigamer, and an RPGer, with the focus on people that get ready and go to Gen Con. I want to make Gen Con be the culmination of where I film the final half of the documentary. That's in my mind's eye. And the goal, again, is to put it out there, what we gamers do, and to put us on the map, to put us on the vocabulary of everyday people. Hey, some people may laugh. Some may want to join us after saying, hey, that's pretty fun. Some, and probably most, will say, oh, that's what it means when someone goes to a gaming convention. I never thought that. That's my goal. My goal is when I say go to Gen Con, people don't think I wear Spock ears. Nothing wrong with wearing Spock ears, but that's cosplay at a Star Trek convention. So, send those in. I'm also going to put the criteria up on my blog. What I want you to do is you can send the video directly to me, or if you don't have that capability, because what I'm wondering is through email, if we won't have the capability to send a video file that big. So my thought is go ahead and put it up on YouTube, and why don't we start with a private link to begin. I may go ahead and make those public at some point, but I may want to edit them and piece them together. Here's the legal mumbo jumbo. Anything you send in to me, I own. I get to use in any capacity I want. So by the mere act of submitting it to me, you recognize and realize that you may be shown up on the web, up on YouTube. Obviously, if you make it into the documentary, you'll know that, and we'll have you sign the necessary creative licenses and creative waivers and stuff like that. But to get the ball rolling, anything you submit we own and I can use for any purpose. But just to be honest with you, the purpose I'm going to do is I'm going to put it up on the blog, I'm going to put it up on YouTube, and I'm going to try to promote the beginning of the show. I've cost-priced the film out in order to film on 5 different locations and then film at Gen Con. The budget is about $45,000. That includes the rental of the camera, which is about $1,000 a day. So for Gen Con alone, $7,000 just to have the camera and the proper lens. It's called a red lens. I have no idea what that means. To add a cameraman to that bundle is about another $300 a day, so it's about $1,300 per day. And then, I got to fly out on location, the goal being 4 to 5 people. I want to say that Angelo Lombardi, in his hugest graciousness, La Quinta Inns and Suites is my first official corporate sponsor for the documentary, The Jimmy Django Project. That's right, folks. All hotel accommodations are going to be paid for and put up for by La Quinta Inns and Suites. Can't thank them enough. That keeps the cost way down. Now, for Gen Con, only because of La Quinta's about 12 miles off-site, I want to be on-site. Again, not this Gen Con, but next Gen Con. So we're going to have some costs involved there. I am going to be launching a Kickstarter campaign or Indiegogo, but I don't need money yet, so I'm not going to raise money yet. So I've done a little bit of research there. And again, what I want to do is get some video submissions in and kind of get the ball rolling over the next 60 days. So that's it, guys. I got to say, I'm excited. I'm nervous. I'm scared. Any questions about the documentary, please email me at rafe@jimmydjango.com. And again, I look forward to seeing what you guys put out. Oh, and all right, along with the video submissions, please email to rafe@jimmydjango.com your name, address, your age, if you're married or single or otherwise in a relationship. If you are in a relationship, is your significant other a gamer? Your occupation, how long you've been gaming and within your subset, LARPer, cosplay, RPG, etc. And go ahead and feel free to draft me up a short bio. I will let you all figure out what a short bio is, but I don't know how many submissions I'm going to get. I guess if I only get 5 submissions, it could be a long bio, but hopefully we'll see some more submissions than that over the months to come. I'm going to, be talking about this over the next couple shows. You'll certainly hear about it on Jimmy Django. Look for my tweets. And, hey, we'll see where this journey takes us, huh? I hope in the end it'll be a movie about us and for us and something that we can all be proud of. Hey, I have to say that I'm really looking forward to appearing on episode 100. I've got a Rafe's Roundtable in store to talk to the guys about, and, yeah, should be good. All right, guys, see you in 2.
And we always like to talk about our friends at War Games, Soldier, and Strategy Magazine. These guys, I love this magazine. I'm looking at issue 59 right now.
Yeah.
That I saw at my local Barnes & Noble, but also I just got in the mail because they sent me one. And this is beautiful. The ships in here, this Vikings, Craig. Vikings.
Oh, it's all about the Vikings.
I know. I'm playing Vikings right now in Blood Bowl. I'm playing the Norse. I'm like, this is so cool. And they got the cool shields in here, little boats floating around in here. Look at that English warship. That looks pretty cool. Just so much. Oh, my. Look at the rigging on these ships. They have some fantastic modeling on these ships in here. Oh, man, there's so much cool stuff in here. I just love the photos, the way they do the shoots in this magazine, the way they do the layouts, the articles, the people they get to contribute. This is just as professional as a gaming magazine ever gets.
Yeah. Oh, it's fantastic. It's got everything in it that you could possibly ask for as a historical gamer, but it's done in such a friendly an easy to understand way that it's very accessible no matter what level of historical gamer you are. And the way that it approaches all these different battles and things, it's not tied to usually one specific game system, although they do focus on lots of different game systems also. But it's more of a theory. I mean, it's more of a theme element where you can just do all kinds of cool stuff. It's just an excellent place for inspiration also.
Ooh, they have war elephants. I'm looking at war elephant pictures.
War elephants is almost a standard. It's almost a staple.
What I like about, and this is the thing too, like even if you're not a big, here's the Rick Priestley article again, even if you're not a big historical gamer, but you're a miniature, modeler and you understand modeling and painting and all that, looking through is just so wonderful to see all these great paint jobs. I just can't get past how beautiful and how high caliber the painters they have for these magazines are. It's really, really nice. So again, check out Wargame. And what's the deal on their website, Craig?
Their deal on their website is if you go to order their website, D6G listeners will get 15% off any combination of orders from their web shop by using the coupon code D6G at their website, www.wssmagazine.com.
Yeah.
This is Total Fangirl. Regular Jane most days, total fangirl when the moment strikes. Han shot first. Starbuck is a guy. And Lestat, now there's a vampire. Hello everyone, this is Nicole, your Total Fangirl. You can find me on Twitter at Nicole Wakeland and check out my blog, TotalFangirl.com. This week's shout out, Royal River Rampage 2.4K Warhammer Fantasy Battle Blood in the Sun Primer. May 5th and 6th, Durago Hobbies in Yarmouth, Maine, next to Bruce's Burritos. This week I'm going to be talking about where I was last week. I had the good fortune to attend something in Austin, Texas called South by Southwest, which is a gigantic, huge 10-day event. It's got an interactive portion, a film portion, and a music portion. And it has panels and events and concerts for the music part and films for the film part. And you get kind of ridiculously close access to some incredibly talented people. I'd heard it was very different from things like San Diego Comic-Con and New York Comic-Con and those sort of more fan-based conventions. And everyone was absolutely right. It felt like every person I ran into while I was in Texas was somebody who was doing something interesting. We were all fans of the stuff we were there to see, but we were fans of people who had these incredibly smart things to share with you. But it was a lot of fun. I discovered that I was in Texas, in Austin, on the single rainiest day that Austin has ever had. That was beautiful. I'll be buying a new pair of shoes. But I also found out that food trucks you see on TV all the time, man, that's the place to be. I ate at more food trucks in those 4 days than I have eaten in the rest of my life combined. The coolest one I just have to share with you is one called Hey Cupcake, and you got cupcakes, gigantic cupcakes right out of a food truck window. That was one of my happiest moments. It was very sweet and delicious and tasty. I also had a great time, though. It's something really cool. Google had the Google Village, and they had a Lego Mindstorm contest. And I know you're thinking, oh, that's cool. The kids could all... No. Not the kids, the grown-ups. We had a team for Geek Mom and Geek Dad. My job was to cheer them on because I am not someone who knows how to program robots or even build them. And we had a great time. A couple of folks on our team actually managed to place really well, and they won themselves some tablets. But there's nothing quite like looking across a room with a bunch of people drinking free drinks with their laptops and their tablets and their phones and so many Lego pieces that you have lost count. They each got a Mindstorm kit. They ripped it back together again, and then they had to take it through an obstacle course that included other Legos to go over, random 3.5-inch floppy disks, and all sorts of obstacles. They had one laptop that was covered the screen with Legos that were blue, and it said blue screen of death. They had to get over that blue screen of death. It was pretty cute. That was one of the neat things that was going on. There were also some incredible panels where you got access to people who had managed to do really interesting things, people who had built entire corporations or done apps that were crazy that had made a ton of money. People had lots of experience with things and just sharing what was inside of their heads. I think my favorite panel of the entire time is one that'll probably appeal to more of the listeners on here. It was Joss Whedon. Joss himself came out and he talked to a packed room of people who were so happy to see him. And it was nice to hear him talking about his experiences. He chatted a bit about how exciting it was to do the Avengers, and we all held our breath through the entire panel waiting for a preview. That didn't happen, but it was still fantastic to see him. He made fun about how he feels that studios don't get him and told a really cute story where he had managed to go talk to some executives about getting involved with The Dark Knight Rises, that whole franchise, before it restarted, and how he felt like the executive that he was talking to the entire time was thinking about what he was going to have for lunch and had no idea what Joss was actually saying. He said he got in his car, he drove away, and as he was driving back in his car, he thought, gosh, what more needs to happen to prove to me that they just don't get me, that I need to find another way to do this? And this was before things like Dr. Horrible and all those wonderful things that he's gone on to do. And he said he got back to his office, walked inside of his office, and that's when he found out that Firefly had been canceled. He threw his hands in the air and said, "It was a rhetorical question, God!" But it was neat because he was making fun of something that happened and how that real huge setback of a show that he loved and that the characters, the actors in the show loved, wasn't given a fair shake. And you'd think that some people may have turned around and said, the heck, I'm done with it. But when you think of all the things he did after that, it's pretty darn cool. So it was a little bit of an inspirational moment where we all thought, yeah, if Joss Whedon can come back from that day, I ought to be able to come back from whatever bad day is happening to me. So South by, really a fun thing to go to. There was also a section, an area called the Screen Burn Arcade. And I have to admit that the geek in me really thought this was the best part of the whole thing. You walked in and they had Alienware there with all their PCs, and they were running all sorts of contests, and it was loud and it was noisy, and it was kind of like going to San Diego Comic-Con or going to New York Comic-Con or one of those things. And that was the only time the entire weekend that I saw any cosplayers, and the one I saw happened to be Wolverine. So this made me very happy. We also got a great sneak peek at what's going on with the Star Wars The Old Republic MMO and some fantastic stuff from the folks at Marvel about their new X-Men versus the Avengers cartoon, or comic that's coming out. So if you ever happen to find yourself in a position to head to South by Southwest, yes, it's a pricey ticket, but it is totally worth the price of admission.
Hi, this is Dan, your friendly professional game guide. Welcome back to When You Wish Upon a Game, where we discuss ways we can make the games industry better. Today's topic comes from listener Phil, who wrote in to share his frustration over one element of games. Quote, "For the love of Yoda, would game publishers stop picking near-identical shades of different colors?" Phil cites statistics that about 8% of men have some form of color blindness, while women are only afflicted by color blindness about 0.5% of the time. My brother has this issue, along with many other folks I play with, and there are elements of poor color choice and correspondingly poor graphic design that negatively impact play even for non-colorblind folks. Ticket to Ride faced this issue with its first edition, where it had no way for people who are red-green colorblind to distinguish between the different sets of cards, resulting in a strategically disadvantageous question of, is that a green route? Is that a red route? And then you'd know where they were going, and you could intercept them and block their routes. So it made it very difficult, and they added corresponding icons in later printings to alleviate the issue. More recently, Eclipse smartly chose different colors from the player colors for the resource cubes. So they had player colors like red and green and blue, the usual suspects, and then the resource cubes were orange, brown, and pink. However, the orange didn't end up looking like orange, it ended up looking like light brown, and so it became very difficult to distinguish between regular dark brown and the lighter brown, even for non-colorblind players. So designers and publishers, when you're picking your colors in your graphic design, be sure to think about how players who are colorblind or playing in less than ideal lighting will be impacted. In fact, why not test the game under those conditions to see if it works before printing it? And don't neglect black and white as excellent stark contrast neutral colors for some of your pieces. Thanks for writing in to suggest this topic, Phil. That's what Phil sees when he wishes upon a game. How about you? Email me at wish@gamesalute.com. Thanks for listening and have fun playing.
And then, of course, there's the coolest, most awesomest game aggregate place ever, Game Salute. Mm-hmm. Game Salute puts all the new game news. In fact, you heard in this episode, or you may have heard, or you will hear, Angelo talk about Game Salute and finding and learning a shit. Yes. And there's all kinds of cool stuff, and you can even find like hints and tips at public speaking.
No, but it would be helpful, wouldn't it?
It would be helpful if you could. And of course, is your favorite local store on the store selector at Game Salute? You can have them sign up today at GameStoreLocator.com to get access to select stores exclusives games like Yomi, Alien Frontiers, and Fealty. Check out Island Fortress coming from Frostforge Games. Pre-order today at shop.gamesalute.com or through your favorite select store. That's GameSalute.com.
Worlds to conquer, foes to vanquish, violence to sow, and medieval crops to reap. The whole world of gaming at your fingertips. The D6 generation. Born to game.
Welcome back, and now we want to talk about two great games from one great company, Plaid Hat Games.
And they taste great together.
Sort of, I guess so. We've all got our plaid hats on here. Or I have the plaid hat. No one else has plaid hats.
Well, you took up all the plaid fabric for your hat.
Did. Oh. Wow. So let's start off with, now both these games are pretty simple. Summoner Wars in particular is very simple, and I've been playing it now for quite some time, since the Master Set came out. And let's talk a little about Summoner Wars first. Now, Angelo, I know you've been playing a lot also lately, so we'll get into this here. It was originally published way back in 2009. And it came in 2 faction starter boxes. So this is a game, it's basically decks of cards with a board to play on, but in the starter boxes, it's just a piece of paper for the board that unfolds. And then recently they've released the Master Set. More about that later, but that really makes it into more of a full-fledged board game. It's obviously published by Plaid Hat Games, who the designer is Colby Dow. And Colby, I had the pleasure of meeting Colby. He doesn't remember me, I'm sure, but back in PAX East 2010, he actually demoed the game to me, but I was just one of millions, I'm sure.
And he had a plaid hat on.
He does wear a plaid hat. He actually does. And in 2011, they released the Master Set, which I mentioned. And it's primarily a 2-player game, but it can actually has rules for playing 3 or 4 players. 4 players ideal is basically 2-player teams, kind of like you play a 4-player miniature war game. You're really looking at teams of 2. Uh-huh. Game time is fast. I consider this to be a filler game. It's about 30 minutes to an hour. Is that fair, Angelo, in your experience?
Yeah, absolutely.
And the price point's pretty affordable. The 2 faction starter packs are $25. The Master Set is $50. And each individual faction deck, which are also sold separately, or reinforcement packs, are $9.95, $10. And so, Craig, what is, I got it right here in front of you here, what is the official Summoner Wars theme statement?
Summoner Wars is a fast-playing, action-packed 2 to 4 player card game. Players take on the role of summoners, powerful beings who harness the power of mysterious summoning stones to lead their race to conquest on the war-torn planet of Itharia. These summoners wield terrible magic on the battlefield, freezing their foes in place, draining their enemies of power, and even bringing rains of fire down from the heavens. But most notoriously, they summon their great race's hordes of warriors to the battlefield to clash in the never-ending struggle of supremacy. A summoner is both mage and general, and must combine their wizardly might with clever tactics to defeat the enemy summoner on the opposite side of the battlefield.
There you go. Right. Is that a pretty fair summary, Angelo?
Yeah, it with the echoes in particular, but you have to play it with the echo.
You have to play it with the echo.
I play an event card. So right, and it is.
I call down fire from the heavens.
Nice. So yeah, basically the thing of the game is it sort of feels like a miniature war game with cards. But each card represents one model or person, and what often happens is you're playing on a battlefield that's covered with, instead of a perfect grid, it's covered with sort of rectangles, right? And each spot is the size of the card if you put it horizontally. So the cards are played horizontally, and then they move around the table. You slide them around like you'd move pieces on a checkerboard or a chessboard. So let's talk about what comes in the box. Craig, what does the sound of a Plaid Hat game sound like when you open up a Summoner Wars box?
That would be...
That was quite summonery.
It was summonery.
Angelo, what comes in the two-player sets?
In the two-player sets, you get the two faction decks, which simply is enough to play an entire game in those small decks of cards. A small rulebook, some life tokens, which are cleverly one on one side, three on the other to make it easy to keep your pile sorted, and a rather sad little paper map, which I do think will be perfect for traveling with to Adepticon, but really it doesn't give you the experience you want. It is enough for that price for two people to be playing, but get into the extra decks because it's the best $10 you're ever going to spend to make a game robust.
Yeah, the paper, you know how I am about my components, and so the paper map, which is what you play on with the two-player starter set, it's literally just a folded piece of not even really construction paper. It's almost like somewhere between regular paper and construction paper. It's very, very flimsy, and it's the primary reason why I just couldn't get myself into Summoner Wars. But when the Master Set came out, I was sold, because in the Master Set, which looks like a nice, one of those square Fantasy Flight box type things, high gloss, nice artwork on the front, sort of faux wooden size like an old 1970s station wagon. And when you open it up inside there, you find that there's a short rule book, but it's full color. There are 6 different faction decks. And what's interesting about this is the Master Set just came out last year. They've been producing different starter boxes and everything for a while, but all the factions in the Master Set are new. There's no other way to get them by buying the Master Set. So what's nice about that is you've been collecting it for a while. If you want to get the Master Set for the better board, because it's actually a full, nicely shiny 2-part board that goes together that replaces the mat, looks very, very nice. There's also an insert that holds up to about, I think, 10 different decks of cards, and even more if you put dividers in there. So if you want all that, you get the Master Set, but don't worry, you're not duplicating anything, because you're still getting 6 new factions there as well.
For less than the cost of 5 factions, you get a great kit. That little divider, I've got all the expansions and reinforcement packs. They all fit in there. It's a great value.
It really is. I would say with the Master Set out there now, you'd be foolish to start with a 2-player set, because as Angelo said, a 2-player set is $25. The Master Set is $50. So for the price of 2 starter sets, you're getting a nice board, and instead of getting only 4 faction decks, you're getting 6. So it's a much better deal, and you got ways to store stuff also. So I really like the Master Set. It's definitely the way to get in there. What do you think about the value of the components you get in either of these boxes, Angelo?
They're both worth it. I consider it the cost of a blister pack. I go and I buy one GW model, and I can get an entire faction, a playable army, if you will, for that price. For $50, the divider, just throwing that in demonstrates what they're giving the customer. The 6 new factions is a great way to reward past customers. I wasn't one of those, but how exciting would it be to have a relaunch of a game with all new content? For a new player, though, you don't feel like you missed anything. It's completely standalone. I've got the Master Set here, a couple of the starter sets. Any one of them will get to the table. If you like the game, then you can invest $10 at a time and blow it up.
Yeah, and I keep finding myself buying more of these little decks. I can't resist it because it's a nice way to and this isn't blind purchase at all. Each deck is fixed what you get, and one deck is enough to fill the army very competitively. So you don't need to try to find the right card or get more decks. Even like the living card games from Fantasy Flight, where you're trying to get certain combinations of cards, none of that happens in this game. Pretty much, it's fixed deck. There is a little bit of deck building you can do, but it's not really the primary part of the game. At least not for me. You can do it if you want to, I guess. But
if 2 friends put in $50 a piece, you would have many evenings of a variety of content.
Right. Almost endless, I would say.
Yes.
Now, on their website, it says that if you don't want to do deck building, they have an app.
They do.
Does it take some kind of app to do it if you're not going to do deck building?
The deck building it's not really a deck building game. The packs come and they're completely playable as is. Then they have reinforcement decks that allow you to very slightly modify your faction, change out some of your commons, change out some of your champions. It'll have a radical change to your gameplay, but it's not deck building in the traditional sense of what we think of a deck building game. It's just a slight reskinning of a theme. And on their website, they've got, here, if you want to use this reinforcement pack, here's the suggested way to throw it together. Put the pack in your box and be done with it. It's not a large effort.
Yeah, what's happened now is there's so many different base factions. Like I think there's 14 different factions, and I found myself, I played probably 30 games of this now, and because it is so fast, I found I want more than just the factions in the box. So I've bought several more, but I haven't even gotten to the level yet of wanting to buy the expansion, the reinforcement packs. I just keep buying new factions. So I have like the undead and all the other factions, but I don't really have all the reinforcement. I haven't even gotten to the deck building part of the game, and it's still you don't even feel like you're missing anything at this stage. I'm sure if it was the only game you played, you want more of it, but I think that's, as Angelo said, it's sort of a secondary feature of the game. That's kind of neat that it's there, but you don't in any way need to do it.
Well, then I have something fun I will mail you. I get swept up. I'm a completionist. When I get a game that I like, I try to buy all the components, and somehow I wound up with 3 duplicate reinforcement packs.
Ooh.
And there's no value in having duplicate reinforcement packs, so I will drop them in the mail headed your way.
Well, you are awesome, sir. I will accept those gladly.
Yeah, you will put them to good use.
I will indeed. So let's talk a little bit about what comes in one of these decks, right? So you get it is a tactical miniature combat game, basically, but just cards. But the cards are your dudes. D-O-O-D-Z. That's my word. Dudes.
Very nice.
Your cards are your dudes. You get the key guy in your deck is the summoner card. He's your main dude, and he always starts on the board. And if he dies, you lose. So you got to protect your summoner. He's kind of like the queen and king in chess, or your warcaster war machine. You got to protect your summoner. You also get, which is very important, a quick reference card in your deck. And that's important because not only does it tell you the quick reference card, but on the other side, it has the deployment of your forces. Now, each faction has a fixed deployment that they must deploy the same way every time. So what ends up happening is you get really interesting starting situations because the dwarves always deploy the same way, but the dwarves fighting the dark elves would be different than the dwarves fighting the high elves because they're laid out differently. So where you start and where your first attack is going to be different depending on what faction you're fighting.
And they utilize that for the armies. They're not equal. If you're playing a Games Workshop game, you both have 2,000 points on the table, you're going to have parity. What they can do is take a deck and make it substantially less powerful 1-for-1, but then give you more cards in the opening turn to rebalance that. So that forced startup allows them to create flexibility in the decks and not have to feel like they're all cookie cutter.
Yeah, it's really interesting. Now, also, you've got in your decks, besides cards that are your units and cards that are your summoner, you also have cards that are walls. Walls are really important because they block enemy movement, but also they are where you summon from. So when your summoner brings more guys to the table, you have to have a free space next to a wall. So you got to defend those walls. They can be destroyed. You're also going to have champions and commons, which are the main dudes cards, as I say. And then you're also going to have event cards, which are cards you just play at a certain phase of the game that you do crazy things like bring darkness to the table and cause your opponents to have trouble or whatever. They do all kinds of crazy events. So that's kind of give you what's in a deck. They're really mostly, the bulk of the deck is the champions and the commons. Cards you're going to get to the table and move around the table as if they were warriors. So setup's pretty straightforward. Angelo, what does setup entail?
You throw the 2 boards down, and if you get the master set, you get 2 cardboard boards that are effectively, 1 multiplied. You take your deck, you take out the number of cards on your starter card, which is always a summon or a wall, and say, 2 to 4 units. Put them on the board, put your life counters, put your dice, grab your drink of choice, look your opponent in the eye, and talk smack.
That's right. And you just dice off a first turn. That's pretty much it. So yeah, you follow your reference card, lay your stuff down, you're done, shuffle your deck, boom. And we should also mention the board's got a nice little border where it's got predefined slots for where the draw pile goes, the discard pile goes, and the magic pile goes. Your cards have a third purpose. In addition to being units you play and you discard, you're also going to use them as magical energy, but they have to come from a certain spot on the board, and to get there is take some special things, and we'll talk about that in a second. So the turn of the game is really simple. There are really only a few steps. Step 1 is you're going to draw up to 5 cards in your hand. But if you're player number 1, if you win first turn, you skip the first 3 phases of turn 1. So if you're player 1, you don't draw cards, you don't get to summon, and you don't get to play any event cards in your first turn. This is a nice feature because it keeps the game balanced, even though you get first initiative, you get to attack first. So it's kind of nice. Player 2 is going to get to summon before you do, basically. Well, sort of. So, after the game gets going, every turn consists of the following. You're going to draw your hand up to 5 if it's below 5. Then you're going to summon if you want to. Now, summoning's pretty simple. You look at your cards. Different guys have a different summoning value on the cards, and you're going to pay for that in magical points. Now, magical points are cards that are in your magic pile, which is just another spot on the board, and it starts empty. The way you get cards into your magic pile is either by killing an enemy. So when you kill an enemy unit, instead of Angelo just taking his dead guy off the table, you get to put that guy face down into your magic pile. So you're taking energy from the guy you just killed. Also, you can, at the end of your turn, there's a phase called Build Magic, where you can take cards from your hand that you don't plan to use and put them into your magic deck, and that allows you to build energy to play in the following turn, right? So really you're trying to build up your magic deck so you have energy to summon people.
And that's the mechanic that drives the entire game.
Really
do you hold your cards and build an army, or do you burn your cards and summon fast? It's simple, and it really defines the game.
Right. And when you bring a guy in, so let's say you've got a guy in your hand, and it says he's got a summoning cost of 2, and you look down and your magic pile has got 2 cards in it, you're just going to take those 2 cards, put them in the discard pile, and take the guy you're going to summon and put him adjacent to any wall that you currently, that one of your walls on your side of the board. Now, to be adjacent to your wall means not diagonal. So there's no diagonals in this game. It's got to be right next to it. This is an interesting tactic, too, because if you can either destroy the enemy's walls or get all your guys adjacent to his walls, he has no place he can summon to, and he's got to kill your guys first before he can summon. Now, it is possible to get more walls into the game, but basically, if you can mess up the guy's walls, that's one of the good tactics in the game. So step 1, you drop to 5. Step 2, you summon if you want to. Step 3, you can play event cards. Now, event cards are just special cards in the game. They got a big picture of your caster of your summoner on there, and they have a little paragraph of text, and they do all kinds of crazy things, from bringing guys back from the dead pile to giving your guys extra dice in combat. Depends, and they're usually very faction specific, right? So they're usually designed for if the undead, they're bringing guys back. If they're the dwarves, maybe they're doing extra damage to the enemy's walls because you've got miners, that kind of thing. After you play your event card, then you get to move. So moving is very simple. You're going to move 3 cards, 2 spaces with no diagonal movements. You look on the board, it doesn't have to be your side of the board. You look at all your cards on the table, and you can move 3 of your cards 2 spaces, right? That's pretty much it. You can't move through the enemy pieces. You can't move through their walls. You can't move through your own guys. You just move 3 cards 2 spaces. Next is attacking. How does attacking work, Angelo?
You very simply, you get 3 attacks per turn. You'll either have a sword icon, which means you have to be adjacent, also no diagonals, or a archer symbol, which allows you to shoot in a straight line up to 3 squares. Simply for each attack number on your card, you roll a d6. On a 3 or better, it is a wound. And then you'll have some cards that break that roll that are less accurate or have some other nuances. Nothing you have to go to a rule book, all very simple.
Exactly. And so if my guy's got 2 attack dice, I roll them. If both dice come up 3s or better, that's 2 hits, and Angelo would take 2 little wound markers and place them on his card. And on his card, there's a little number of spots on there that indicates how many total wounds the guy can take before he dies. So that's it. And if I did enough to kill him, I'll be taking his card and putting it in my magic piles for energy for next turn. After I attack, I can then build magic, which is basically taking cards out of my hand and putting them into my magic pile, so I'll have them for next turn to summon. And that's the whole game. And you go back and forth like that until you kill the other guy's summoner. And even if what's interesting too about the game, if your deck runs out, you don't reshuffle it. You just play. You keep playing until someone's summoner dies. So once your deck runs out, you're pretty much out of bringing new guys to the table, but you can just keep going, right? Which is sort of interesting. So you can play the game for attrition, or you can play the game for the early kill, or some combination thereof. What are some good examples of factions, Angelo?
My personal favorite that I've heard you reference is the undead. I can't remember if they're called the Forbidden Kingdoms.
The Fallen Kingdoms. Fallen Kingdoms. I love them. They're awesome. 3 types of dwarves.
You've got the elves. You have the Phoenix elves, the jungle elves, and there's a version of dark elves. The cloaks, your vanguards, which are angels, a couple of human factions, dwarves. I love the sand goblins, and orcs as well, both the tundra and the Arctic orcs. Huge variety. Every one of those is radically different.
They're radically different, and one of the interesting ones, too, is the swamp orcs, which come in the master set, come with a huge deck of walls. So most decks probably have like 3 or 4 wall cards in them. But the orcs have these bunch of vine walls, which are easier to break, but every time you kill somebody, they turn into a vine wall. And suddenly, there's vine walls all over the place you can summon guys from, and there's some of their monsters have best special abilities. If they're near the vine wall, they do more damage, because they're like reaching through the vines and grabbing you. Really interesting how they've taken the game and done some really crazy things with different factions.
Yeah, a few other examples of that. Like one of the goblin factions, nearly every troop has a 0 summoning cost. So when you play it, it feels like a swarm army. And then you've got the the Jungle Elves, we get free movement. So in addition to the 3 cards you get to move, all their Lioness cards also get to move for free. Mm-hmm. So it feels like it really captures the essence of what you'd expect the army to be.
Well, you can do crazy stuff, too. Like, it's really interesting because they can do so much. Like, for example, some of the Goblin factions have summoning costs of 0. So you can bring guys out like crazy, but their stats are really weak, right? And then they have other guys who are really tough. Right. They have guys like Dwarves who are really, really tough, but they can't be brought out. So it's really expensive to get out. It's really cool. So that's pretty much the whole game. Any other things before we go to final thoughts, Angelo?
I'll wrap it up in final thoughts. I have a comment on the board, but I think that's a final thought.
Okay. So let's see. Well, before we give our final thoughts, we probably should describe the patent-pending D6G rating system. And I think, we should throw to our guest host here. So, Angelo, in the style of a summoner, please describe the patent-pending D6G rating system.
All right, with my number of summoner games under my belt, I am feeling up to the challenge, so let me begin. I call to order this rare meeting of the supernatural. Once in a generation, we gather to discuss matters of the utmost importance to the world that demand our mystical attention. I bring to you wise council of wizards, witches, mages, mystics, prestidigitators, sorcerers, voodoods, and voodettes, the D6G rating system.
Nice.
To call it patent pending would be an affront to your intelligence. After all, we are just one session away from the centurion mark, the mystical, powerful number 100. How long does it take to patent something, eh? What legal assistance do these charlatans seek? Rafe Granger Esquire, I suppose. But enough about that. The topic at hand before this sage council is the system itself, and what a system it is. If a layman were to reach into his pouch and remove a beautifully wrought scrimshaw cube carved from the thigh bone of an ancient worm that an artisan had scribed pips upon its 6 sides, marking them as a 1 to a 6, you would have a die. More to the point, you would have the very same D6 this wise and whimsical show is named after. Casting that die without the aid of magic will result in a random number from 1 to 6. Each side has a 16.666 ad infinitum chance of coming up each time you roll it. Not, of course, when a mage does it. When that happens, all manner of creatures spring from the earth to do battle. Worlds and galaxies are born, and sometimes spells are even cast with total power. Now, in the latest edition, immediately followed up with a terrible miscast from a table designed to make us all look foolish. But that's not the topic at hand. But I do pose this topic for the council to later discuss. But enough about that. Imagine now your chance of liking a game coincides with the same roll of this rather nice little D6. To say they'd like it on a 6+ means that any one normal gamer would have a 16.666 at all chance of liking it. Lowering the number increases the odds. A 4+, for example, is 50%, rather nifty in fact. This continues all the way to the coveted 2+, which means that 83.33 gamers will like this game. However, that isn't enough for the scholars of the D6. After consulting the bones, reading the cosmic energy of the universe, and crowdsourcing better options, they developed... Yeah, I'm a listener, see? They developed 2 rather clever enhancements to this system. The first is known as the Gallant Principle, or in lesser circles, the reroll. The reroll defies physics and logic. You see, time and space were bent, and instead of the reroll working like it does in the real world, on this show it represents basically a half a pip, or an 8.33 additional chance of liking the game. 4+ for the reroll represents 58 1/3 chance of liking a game in the alternate universe versus 75% in the more mundane world. The second enhancement is known as the Rust Paradigm, also known as the Big Head Theory. It posits that different gamers like different things. Card gamers, for example, are more likely to like a deck-building game with cards, while dice gamers are more likely to go quasi about quarters. The Big Head Theory allows you to give multiple ratings to a game in order to ensure you aren't backed into a corner with a single number. The record number of ratings ever applied in a game happened in the year 2010, when Rafe Granger reviewed Agricola to a group of farming experts at the annual FFA convention in Lubbock, Texas. He reportedly assigned over 312 unique ratings to a game, of which 122 had rerolls associated with them. This instance so defied logic that the universe was completely torn asunder, and a new one, nearly exactly like it was created. The only difference is this new uniform in this new universe is gamer funk is no longer a rank, terrible odor, and instead has become a desirable fragrance. Gamers went on to date supermodels, and a new era was ushered in. Here endeth the review.
Wow. That may be the longest explanation ever, but it was awesome.
A lot of time and effort went in there.
Yeah, no, that was totally impromptu. I could tell.
I was going to cover that in other because it took about as long as writing my campaign for Savage Worlds, but I didn't want to give away that I had actually rehearsed.
Nice. Well done, sir.
Well
done. I think that might be an official episode 100 entry. That was pretty good.
I think that's the moment he was trying to create.
There you go.
There you go.
So, okay, I'll go first because I have only a few thoughts on this one. Let's see. There is that cool online deck building tool that Craig mentioned, which is really nice. So they definitely are supporting the game very heavily. They did just do a big reprinting. I think the new 2-player packs have new artwork on them and things. My favorite part of the game, I've talked about this before when we talk about any games with factions in them, and I have that rule of the 4-faction rule, at least, to make the game interesting. This game has got 14 factions. That is fantastic. And they're releasing, I think, 3 to 6 more this year. So it just keeps growing. It's great. A great way to incrementally build the game. And I just love the variety. That's the best part about the game, really. And I like how fast it is and how simple it is to teach. This is a game you can slap down the board. You can explain the rules in like not even 10 minutes, 5 minutes. And the person will completely understand it and be ready to play and be thinking tactics, not rules, the rest of the game. I just really like it. It plays fast. It's a great filler game. It's just a great fun game, and it's a great game if even if you have a half afternoon to play, you can just play it back to back to back, switching factions and trying to one up the person you're playing against over and over again. It's a lot of fun. So I'm going to give this game. This is a 3+ the reroll, I think, for everybody. I don't know how you can not enjoy this game, to be honest with you. There, I said it.
Really?
I did.
Wow, look at that.
I really like it.
Not quite good enough to get the 2+, but 3+ with a reroll is pretty darn high.
I like it. I think the only people. Here's what I will put a modifier in here. This is the Craig. This is the Gallant. This is the
Rust paradigm.
This is the Gallant modifier. I mean,
put in the modifier for people who don't.
If you don't like games, or you can kill the king to win. Right, like War Machine or chess.
Right. Well, I've been told this is like a cross between War Machine and Magic the Gathering, is what I was told.
It doesn't feel like Magic to me, although I guess you could say since you're summoning creatures is like Magic. But there's absolutely no deck. I mean, we said there's deck building, but it's not really. It doesn't feel like a deck building game at all. I don't.
Because on their website it says it's a deck building game.
Yeah,
it's a strong deck building component.
I don't know. Angela, what do you think about that?
I don't see it. I
don't either.
I don't.
Yeah.
I think you could modify your deck. I don't see it as any deck building. Now maybe there's some future plans.
Yeah.
But other than swapping out a few commons and a character within very rigid guidelines.
Yeah,
it doesn't really have that component.
You don't really feel like, put it this way, you don't really feel like during the game you're like, oh, if you hadn't snuck that card into your deck, I'd have been fine. There's never that moment of like, oh, look at that crazy card you have. You know what I mean? Like it's sort of, you kind of learn the armies and know what they do. You know. But I really like it. But I will give it a -1 modifier for people who don't like Kill the King, because I do know some people like yourself who don't like games where if you can lose one piece, the game ends. So so that part is definitely there. And if you don't like that, that's not your thing.
Gotcha. Okay.
Angelo, what do you think?
I also really enjoy the game. I've played 5 of the factions. I've played against 5 of the factions, multiple versions of it. And I'm going to put a standing order with my FLG that any expansions for this game, go ahead and grab and put in the box. I will be a future player of it. I've played it both on the tabletop, but also through Vassal, which I know I mentioned a few times. Mm-hmm. Now, my standing rule for Vassal is I wouldn't play a game on Vassal that I don't own the components for. I certainly wouldn't support, not supporting the game company. But this one plays really well remotely. It's a very good social game. My brother and I have played it the long distance a few times. And what I love about Vassal is you can set up the board and hit save, and immediately, no setup time, get right back into a game
nice.
and play it very quickly in Vassal. The variety between the different factions is what makes the game. If they gave me 2 decks of cards and a board, I would still play this quite a bit. But when you see one deck and then you switch to undead or you switch to goblins, it's a radically different game, and they've made so much out of that magic card mechanic. Some cards capture cards and stack them, making them big mana batteries, and other cards have 0 summoning cost, and there's cards that deny being captured for your opponent's magic, and all within their very simple rule structure, and just opens up a whole tree of strategies between the different factions. So I really enjoy that. It captures a lot of what I love about miniature games with, practically no upfront cost, no long play times, no hobby requirement. So for $10, you can have an entire new experience. So it will see the table with me a lot. I think the reinforcement decks are good when I exhaust what I have, but just like you, Russ, I haven't felt the need to use them yet. It is easy to teach, so any experienced gamer could be playing it in minutes. All you really have to do is glance at the casting cost of your champions and read your event cards so you sort of know how the deck plays, and you could be up and playing. My one gripe is the very nice board that comes with the master set. 2 pieces, you kind of butt them up against each other and you play. I spent more time adjusting the board where it's getting bumped and the cards are getting knocked around. Yeah. It was really frustrating. So next time I play, I'm going to take a big piece of packing tape, clear packing tape, put it on the back of my board so that doesn't happen, or blue tack it to the table. Because it was frustrating, well worth putting up with for the quality of the game.
You could get those little sticky rubber feet they sell at the Home Depot, put them on the bottom of the board.
That actually might be a great solution.
That way you don't put any
with
tape
a glass
on the board.
top table, that'll
there you go.
give you friction.
Yeah, Craig, I was thinking about the magic thing, and I think there are similarities in how you summon, but my biggest disappointment in Magic is that sometimes I feel you can get beaten by the deck. Like, there's no strategy. I know Magic players will send me emails, but there's not a lot of strategy on the table. It's all in your deck building. This game, it feels like you're losing in maneuver. Does that make sense? So it's during the battle you feel like you lose, not your deck.
Yeah, I don't know. I've never played, and it's been a very long time since I've watched it played. I'm just explaining. I'm just passing along what's been told to me when I was asking if anybody was willing to give it a shot with me this week.
Even with a caster kill, you're going to see it coming. The game doesn't play so quick that someone's going to rip across the board and backstab you and you're out on a couple of lucky dice rolls. You're going to see it coming. You're going to have a chance to defeat it. Every game I've played, I felt it was coming down to either me not fostering magic well, or using up my deck, or blunting my army against the opponent first, and I've seen the caster kill unfolding. So I didn't have any games end prematurely where I sat there and said, "Oh, I did that. That wasn't fun."
Gotcha.
I'm with Russ. I'm a 3+ with a reroll.
Nice.
I'm gonna give one bit of caution, and you made the statement again. It's like a miniature game without miniatures, and to some degree that's true. A friend told me about this game over a year ago, and I passed playing it because that's how he described it. And I love miniatures, and that one statement made me not want to try this game. And I regret that because I've missed a lot of opportunity to play it. If it captures what miniatures have and makes the most out of cards and combines them to an experience that is really worth trying.
Oh, cool.
So what do you think, Craig? What is your desire to play the game after hearing us yabber about it?
Well, I wanted to play it a while ago, so I would say my desire to play this is a 3+ with a reroll.
Nice, there you go. Across the board, 3+ with a reroll. But wait, there's more. That's just one game. We've got time for 2, I think.
Oh, yeah. If we go quickly.
If we run, so to speak.
If we ran.
We should run through the dungeon.
Right, exactly. So Plaid Hat also recently released in 2012 Dungeon Run. And this is a completely different style game. It is Dungeon Run! Indeed. It is 1 to 6 players, plays in about an hour. And Craig, what is the official description of Dungeon Run?
Dungeon Run is a 1 to 6 player game where you are a hero from one of the factions of Victoria. Sounds familiar. During the game, you will use your guile and skill to maneuver through a dungeon while seeking the ultimate goal. A summoning stone! Use your negotiating skills to forge allegiances. Well, that's the wrong word. With some players while keeping others in check. Destroy monsters and gain treasures that will help you defeat the dungeon boss. But that is only half the battle. Once the boss is slain, it's every hero for himself. Exit the dungeon with the summoning stone under your control, or destroy all your fellow adventurers to be the dungeon run victor. The dungeon run lies before you. Don't walk, run.
Indeed. And so Dungeon Run, the basic theme here is you are exploring a dungeon. It's a dungeon crawling game. But once the boss is defeated, it's every man for himself, and you try to kill each other or get away with the summoning stone.
It's very much Cutthroat Caverns, the board game.
It is more board gamey than Cutthroat Caverns, right? And inside the box, real quickly, it's very pretty cool stuff in there. The only problem, I love the rule book. There's some great jokes in there, but again, no index or table of contents. It's only 10 pages, but still, I like those.
They're always nice.
8 hero cards, 8 figures to match the hero cards, 26 tiles. Nice. What do you think of the tiles, Craig?
They're nice. They're card. They're not Space Hulk thick, but they're
nice.
decent.
Yep. These are the tiles that are going to make up the dungeon floor as you build it. You get 4 boss cards, which describe the boss you're going to fight at the end of your dungeon. You get lots of decks of cards, like encounter cards, ability cards, treasure cards, all that good stuff. You get some wound counters, which are actually the same little wound counters you get in Summoner Wars. So there you go.
Hey, it's the same universe.
It is.
As a matter of fact, the 8 heroes are your summoners from Summoner Wars.
Indeed, that's right. And it's the same universe.
Oh, are they really?
Yeah,
yes, they are.
Oh, cool.
And there are 20 D6s, lots of D6s in this game. There's also a giant first player token. So what do you guys think of the components that come in this box? Is it a good value?
It is. I found them to be a higher quality than I expected based on the number of them and the price point. And I knew it was kind of a lighthearted, fun game, so I really enjoyed how crunchy they were, thick cardboard, really an awful lot of playing cards, a large variety of adventure.
Yeah. The little models are great, too, the little plastic hero figures.
I thought they could have been cool. I was a little disappointed in the hero figures.
Well, they're a little melty. I mean, they're a little, chunky. The detail's not super crisp, but I still think they're pretty neat.
And the price point on this, we should mention, is the same as on the master set of Summoner Wars, $50.
So it's $50. So $50 is a good price for a dungeon crawl. But we should also mention that in all of those things you just said, nowhere is a big giant pile of plastic monster miniatures.
Right.
No, I'm going to raid my D&D miniatures for those 4 bosses at least, because even though you need the card, I like having a dragon on the board.
Yeah, it's more fun when we had the same problem when we were teaching Karen's dad Betrayal at House on the Hill, and we went out and got a bunch of D&D mini monsters that we could fill in for the cardboard tokens. In this game, it's cards, but same thing. And you need the card, but there you go.
Yeah, it's kind of like funny. It's like it does the cards for the monsters, kind of like it's Summoner Wars, but then you have miniatures for your heroes. It's kind of
right.
Just the bosses would have given it a good feel at least.
Yeah, I would like that too. Now, setup is pretty straightforward. The most complicated part is building the dungeon. So you're going to slap the dungeon entrance tile in the center of the board. You're going to take a boss tile. There's only one of those. You put that to the side, and you're going to randomly pull one of the 4 boss cards without looking at it and putting it face down on the boss tile, so you don't know what you're going to face yet. And then there's a bunch of gray tiles and some green tiles, and you're going to draw 4 gray tiles per player in the game and 2 green tiles per player in the game, and shuffle those all up. And that's going to be your unknown face-down pile of dungeon tiles that are going to flip over as you explore the dungeon. Then for setup, you're just going to shuffle up the encounter deck. You're going to shuffle up the treasure deck. You're going to roll to see who player number 1 is. And once you figure out who player number 1 is, player number 1 is going to pick his hero he wants to play, and he's going to pass the pile of heroes around. Each player is going to pick their heroes until everybody's got a hero. Right?
Yes.
Pretty simple.
And they're keyed to their basic abilities, so you can't have all fighters or all magic.
Yeah, you can't pick the same hero, a hero with the same base ability until all the other base abilities have been taken. So
right. Yeah.
And basically the turn. Also, you also get the deck of cards that matches your hero. There's little ability cards that go with your hero. You get all those too. Yeah. Now the turn sequence is pretty simple. Starting with player number 1, each player is going to take 2 what they call heroic actions, and the actions you do can be 2 of the same action. If you do different actions, the order doesn't matter. You just get 2 of them. And then after you take your 2 heroic actions, the next player goes. He or she takes 2 heroic actions, and you go around the table until it gets back to player number 1. When it gets back to player number 1 again, the monsters will roam. More about that later. And then player number 1 is going to pass the player 1 token to the next player, and we're going to repeat the whole process again. All right?
Right.
So the meat of the game is what the actions are. What are some of the actions, Craig?
Well, firstly, you can move. You can't move if you're on the same tile with a monster because you have to make your escape roll for that. You can move through a hallway to a new tile, or if there's no tile there, you can add one. You place it to fit, so there will be times when you're gonna start churning through the deck sometimes because a tile won't fit if you've got like multiple doorways already in place. You've got to discard them as you go, and then you're gonna follow along any of the special rules that are printed on there, and then you're going to check for monsters and treasure, the monsters will automatically attack you when you move in that very first time. Otherwise, it's got to be a separate action to attack them. That's moving.
That's moving pretty much. So yeah, you got to flip a tile over, and if it's and you can only move one space. If all the tiles are revealed, you just move once, right? There's no movement stat on your guys. And we should say each tile doesn't have a grid on it like the D&D games. It's just a big tile.
Yeah.
Now, as Craig mentioned, sometimes you need to escape. So that's another action option. And escaping, you're going to make a skill check versus the monster's escape rating. How does that work, Angelo?
First is not to be recommended. I wouldn't do it often, but the monster has a little number, say it's a 5+. Your character card has a skill number, let's say 4. You simply cast your skill number, 4d6. If any one of them is a 5 or better, you slip away.
Right.
If you fail, however, the monster gets a undefended attack on you, which is really, really bad.
Yeah, really bad. Yeah, don't do that. Unless you have to. Unless it's a monster you can't beat or something else is going on important.
Well, if it's early game, and you haven't mentioned this yet, but you don't even really need to beat the monsters. You can't die until the summoning stone is revealed. Right. So worst case scenario, you could throw the dice and take your chances and maybe get a few wounds that you can heal back later.
Right. But the problem is, here's one of the challenges of the game, is that when you kill a monster, you get the card personally to keep it. So it's got a little bit of that Cutthroat Cavern thing going on there, where you don't want to be the guy that wounds the monster and dies a lot, only to have some other hero walk in and clean up the badly wounded monster and get to keep the card. So you got to you're playing that little game of, we're all kind of working together at this stage of the game. We're just trying to kill monsters and explore, but later we're not going to be friends. And so you got to kind of figure that out.
And worse, you kill the monster, run out of actions, and someone else picks up your treasure.
Right. That always sucks. So let's talk about battling, which is another heroic action. So if you start or happen to be in a space with a monster on it, you can say, my heroic action is going to be battle. And how that works is first actually the monster attacks, right?
Yeah.
So the monster's got an attack rating. He's got to throw that many dice. And he's also got a power rating, which shows which numbers on the dice will be hits. So the monster rolls his dice and looks at every number that is higher than the number he needs to hit you as the hero. And that's how many hits the monster potentially is going to do to the hero.
It's not a number or higher, though. It's actually the exact numbers on the die that'll hit.
Right. So there could be listed.
It could be a 1. It could be a 1, 2, and 3. It could be a 2 and a 5. True, it's all kinds of wacky stuff.
Yeah, it is kind of wacky. Then the hero gets to respond with his own attack, and he's going to roll a number of dice equal to either his brawn rating or his magic rating. So you can basically choose: are you doing a magic attack or a strength attack? Right.
Yeah. And there will be monsters that can ignore certain types of attacks. So there will be reasons that some people will be stronger against somebody than others.
There's also equipment that augments different kinds of attacks too, right?
Yeah.
So you're going to roll that many dice, and this is sort of interesting. So all the dice that exactly equal one of the dice rolled by the monster can be used to block one of those hits by the monster.
Yeah.
Or all the dice that are greater than or equal to the monster's defense value can be used to either block a monster attack or do damage to the monster.
Yeah.
So at this point, the hero player's got to decide, how much of the monster's attack am I going to block but not wound the monster with, or how much am I going to try to hurt the monster, right?
And there's the innovative mechanic. So if you need a 4+ to hit a monster, and he hits you on a 2 or a 3, that monster's effectively weaker because now your 2s and 3s that were throwaway attacks serve as blocks, and you get to keep your 4-ups to do extra wounds. Yeah. So that strange attack system actually weakens and strengthens monsters based on that dynamic.
Right. I liked it a lot. I really liked the way that works.
Actually, the combat system is my favorite part of the game. I think it's really interesting and unique and very different. Yeah. So now you just resolve damage in combat. So the monster's rolled, you roll, you decide what you're going to block with, and whatever is not blocked by either side does damage to that guy, right? So whatever you decide not to block with as the hero, you do that much damage to the monster for every dice that gets through, and whatever you didn't block from the monster does that much damage to you, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Now, if you decide to fight a hero instead of a monster, it's exactly the same, except that you're just looking for 4s to hit all the time.
Right.
That's all. Now, if the monster's killed, the hero gets the card, which is important later for getting loot. And if the hero's killed, as Angelo said, if it's not the end game, that's an official game term, if it's not the end game right now, then the hero's just knocked over. You have to pick a treasure, one of your cards, and put it face down where you fell over. You drop something important. And then next turn, you're going to be able to stand up with half your health, but you don't get any of the actions that turn. So you basically kind of lose a turn, get back up, and drop one item, which you probably can pick up again, except someone else might sneak in there and grab it from you before you can, which kind of stinks. If it is the end game, you're eliminated. Right.
And it's a pretty short game, so losing a turn dying and a turn standing back up is a pretty big setback.
It is a big setback, yeah. Now, the other actions are pretty simple. One of them is equip, which basically lets you swap in and out of equipment. How does equipping work, Craig?
My memory is fuzzy, but isn't it? Doesn't each item actually tell you where you're holding it or carrying it?
Right.
So you can actually have some things will be like a staff takes both your hands, or a sword takes one of your hands. So you could have a shield in the other hand, and you can have one thing on your head. And you can have one thing like a cloak and things like that. So when you're equipping, you can kind of have one of each slot filled up. Or both hands, I think.
Yep.
But you have to choose if you're going to start switching it up. I've played a few times, and I've never had so much stuff that I had a problem fitting everything in.
Yeah, Angelo, how did you find the equipping thing to work?
A simple concept that was made frustrating by a lot of the items requiring you to be a prayer discipline or a skill discipline. In all my games, I almost never find an item I can use.
Yeah,
one game I never rolled a treasure.
Yeah, I've actually had the same.
Yeah, I found the same thing. I always find that I never get what I want. I find the leveling system, I like it, but I've only played the game twice. But the two times I played it, I'm always like, I wish I could do a little more before time ran out. You know?
Yeah.
They're cool magical items, but they sit in a pile taunting you.
Yes, they do.
Yes,
they do. So that's equipping, which is basically swapping out what you're wearing with something else you just got. Now, also, there's the search action. Now, this is important because, as you mentioned, when you reveal a tile, there could be a monster there, there could be treasure there. If there's treasure there lying on the ground because someone dropped it or they killed the monster and the treasure's still there, or there was just treasure there, you can walk in there and spend a search action to grab the loot. Now, when you grab this card, you do have to reveal it to the table and read it out loud. That's by the rules. And then you can take and immediately get a free equip action if you want to put it on your body. All right? So this is where a lot of the tension comes from the game, because you'll walk in there, you'll spend all your both your actions to kill the monster, and now the treasure's sitting there, and Angelo will be like, I'm just going to walk in here, Craig, and take that nice little piece of treasure you had there. And Chris will be like, what are you doing that for? Right? That kind of thing.
Yep.
And the last couple actions, the last real action is advancing, which is basically how you level up. How does that work, Angelo?
This is a great little mechanic. So whenever you have two encounters you've successfully beat, you trade in an action, turn those in, and you level. You get a +1 to either your attack rating, your kind of might, I don't remember the exact term, your magic rating, or your skill, and you also pick the top two skills off your skill deck, read them, take the one that fits your play style, and discard the other. So you gain an attribute, you gain a skill, and these skills add a lot of replayability to the game. The character can develop very differently every time you play.
And that's really the core of the game. There's a couple of free actions you can take that are described on a lot of the cards. There might be an ability for your character. This is use an action to do this special ability. But those actions we just described are the core of the game. Yeah. So after everybody's gone around the table and taken their actions, or two actions, then the monsters get to roam. And this is another little bit of a screw your neighbor component. How does roaming work, Craig?
If you are the first player, you get to move each one of the monsters that is in an empty room or hallway, so not if it's with another player. If it's in an empty room or hallway, you can move it anywhere one space. Right. So you can start blocking other players, or you can actually bring it into a room with another player, so they're now going to have to deal with the monster.
Right, so the monsters don't move randomly. The monsters move at the whim of player one. Right. So you can definitely make friends and or enemies depending on how you move the monsters around. Right?
Yeah. Yep.
Which is very nasty, which a lot of politics start going on and pleading and please don't do that or whatever, you know. Now also, so that's the whole game pretty much. So you're moving around revealing tiles, and once the last tile is revealed.
Before we get there, let's throw in healing, because it's a quick mechanic.
Oh, right. I missed
whenever you defeat an encounter, you gain a life point back. Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's just the automatic function to kind of keep you in the game and motivate you to fight more.
Nice.
Right.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's a good. I forgot about that. Thank you, Angelo. That's important. Mm-hmm. So you heal up as you go, which is always awesome. So now that we've got all our tiles on the table, and once the tile pile is empty, we're going to go and take the boss tile and place it on the board in the spot that's farthest from the entrance after the last tile is played. And then we're going to reveal the boss card, and it's like, oh, there's the boss. And now the boss is going to roam around the board just like he's a monster. But in addition to the normal roaming rules, player one can also teleport the boss anywhere on the table.
Right.
So the boss is pretty much in your face, all causing trouble. But fighting the boss is like fighting any other monster. He's got special rules, but he's pretty much a boss, right?
Yeah.
And when the boss is killed, though, the guy who kills them gets the Summoning Stone card, which has got its own special rules, and that's when the end game begins, right? That's the moment when the game shifts from any sort of pretense of being a co-op to purely a every man for himself game. So how does the end game work, Angelo? What are the special rules involved there?
First, this sound effect goes on. It's like...
Nice.
And everybody makes eye contact, and it is a race for the guy with the Summoning Stone to get out and everyone else to kill him. In theory, what it really turns into is that player one teleporting the... Well, I'm sorry, actually, it was before that. So you optimize that. I found it's easier to kill than to get off the board. I go straight for the opponent, stick my knife in their back, and call it a win through attrition.
Nice.
But the summoner has this, the guy with the Summoning Stone, he has two things that kick in that give him a little bit of survivability. One, you have an extra skill on your card that only becomes active when you have the Summoning Stone. And two, you can use the Summoning Stone to summon a monster once per turn and throw it down in an opponent's space, so you can bring your own roadblocks with you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's not like you become the evil overlord, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, and the player one token never leaves your hands as long as you're holding it. And the game follows the exact same set of rules now in a PvP mode as you trek your way out of the dungeon.
And that player one token not moving is huge because remember, player one controls all the monsters that still on the board. So by holding the Summoner Stone, you become the permanent controlling of all the monsters in the game, and you're trying to get away at the same time. But every hero wants to kill you. That's the problem. So that's pretty much it. And then as soon as you're either the last guy standing or if you get to the exit and end your turn standing on the exit with the Summoner Stone in your hand, you win, right?
Right. Yep.
And that's the game. That's Dungeon Run.
The game. That's it.
So we've already described our patent pending system. Craig, why don't
I
you
want Angelo to do it again.
I need a few minutes to write something.
Everybody just rewind 20 minutes and listen to it again. So Craig, why don't you start off this time? What are your final thoughts on Summoner Wars?
I liked it, but I played it all the times that I played it in very light, casual environments with friendly, fun people who were not in it to win a game. They were in it to play with some friends and just hang out. And so it was a very fun and enjoyable experience all three times. However, I could easily see how you get one wrong person in there who's really trying to win, and then everything else gets more frustrating, and the monsters getting put in your path are frustrating, and the randomness at the end, which is horrifically random, could be very, very frustrating. So I could see myself, I really enjoyed it the first three times. I could play it a fourth time and hate it. Right. If just one of my friends is having a bad day and decides they're going to take it seriously, or one person who's going to take it more seriously gets it into the group, I really enjoyed it. I had a good time playing it both times. I was frustrated with the treasure, as we mentioned earlier, and it's the randomness of getting the treasure, and then it's hard to get the treasure. Like half the time you're rolling the die and a treasure never shows up. And then on top of that, it's hard to get a treasure that actually works for your character. And then on top of that, it's not like a co-op where you're like, oh, come over here. I got a really cool thing I can share with you. And then you'll share a cool thing with me. I mean, you don't want to share things with other people.
Right.
So it generally isn't going to happen. So having said all that, I think I would give this a 4+.
4+.
A 4+.
Yeah, I don't think we mentioned this, but the equip action does allow you to trade.
Yeah.
But
if you want to.
But nobody
if you want to,
Has anybody witnessed the trade in this game?
I have not.
There is a strategy card that the sorceress can get where she can force you to accept a trade.
There you go.
Other than that, no, I've not seen one.
Right. Yeah, most people don't view this in any way as a co-op game, except, very, peripherally. I liked, we'll let our guests go last year. I liked the humor in the book. I love rule books that have little jokes in them, and this one's full of them. I really enjoyed the writing style of it. I think the components are great. I was disappointed in the models. I wish there were a little more detail on them. I think I was disappointed because if you look, I don't know, the figures I got in my box didn't quite look as good as the back of the box, and sometimes that's
that's aggravating.
to me. But I don't know. It's good enough for what it is, and the cardboard's nice. I like it, but I feel like there's something missing. I'm not really sure what it is. I enjoy the game. I would definitely play it again. It is fun. You got to have the right group of guys. and you got to be willing to sort of just. It's kind of like the original Betrayal House on the Hill, where the ends can be fun, but they can also be just wacky.
Yeah,
and you can get an ending in this game where it's just because of how things just played out. It's almost a foregone conclusion who's going to win. Where everybody's standing, and if someone's really close to the exit, or no one's in a position to move because they're all tied up with monsters or whatever, it can just be very luck based. So if you're cool with that, then it's totally fine. But it's sort of interesting to me if you look at Summoner Wars, which is a extremely tactical, very well thought out, methodical, intellectual game. And you look at this game, it's just a complete 360 of it. This is a total, or 180, excuse me.
360,
right.
I was going to say.
A total 180.
We are at the beginning.
Right. A total 180, so it's very much casual. Don't take it too seriously. Don't try to put too much thought into it because all your plans will go to heck with a couple of weird events. So I like it.
It will go right to heck.
I'm going to give it a 4+ also. I think it's right there in the middle.
Alrighty there.
All right.
Angelo?
So I played it both 2-player and 3-player. And 2-player, I would not recommend it. That first-player mechanic, every other turn, you're being skipped, and you're basically taking 4 actions in a row. And it really makes it an odd game, especially in the end phase when you're racing for the exit, to give someone, if they have 2 turns in a row, take the summoning stone, become player 1, effectively 3 sets of actions in a row, you're not going to catch them.
Right.
The teleporting boss is really a broken mechanic, in my opinion. You've got the player at the beginning of the map. He takes over the player 1 token, teleports the beast way over by his side of the board, kills him, walks off the board. So if you just change that roaming mechanic for the boss, I think you could clean it up a little bit. Mm-hmm. On the opposite side, I think it has an excellent leveling up mechanic that provides a different play experience for each avatar. And I really enjoy the dungeon exploring portion of the game. Mm-hmm. If I had more time to maximize the treasures, to maximize the levels, I think I would enjoy that. I agree with everything you said. Once it turns PvP, it's a highly random game. If you know that going in, I think you can have fun with it. If you don't, it's going to be very, very frustrating.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I had my 0 treasure experience, got that out of the way. Like I said earlier, I found that killing the opponent is easier than escaping. I do believe, I haven't had a chance to try it, I'm going to take this to Adepticon. There's going to be 6 of us at the hotel. Mm-hmm. It's obviously a very playful group with a lot of history. I think 6 people playing to have fun would have an awful lot of fun with this. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I'm hoping, now it's a gamble, I'm going to take it and find out. If it doesn't, this is a game I'd consider culling out of my collection. The other option is taking it with my kids, because my 9-year-old is able to play this game. I think the 7-year-old would be able to play this game if we just completely killed the PvP aspect, and when we took the boss down, we shook hands and called it a win, and actually just turned it into a co-op, because I do think there's some mechanics here that are fun, that are young player friendly, and that have replayability if you cut the game a little short.
True. Nice.
There you go.
So I'm going to give it a 5+ as it is, but using the Rust paradigm. If you like to stick a knife in your friend's back, then I would move it to a 4+.
Oh,
nice.
Wow.
Nice.
Okay.
Well, there you have it.
And I should say that all the games I played were with 4 or more players. Yeah. So I would agree that the more they are, the more fun it is.
Definitely. Yeah. So there you have it. 2 Plaid Hat games inside of an hour. There you go, folks. Both worth checking out. Summoner Wars is a great game, and Dungeon Run can be a great experience too, with the right group of people.
Yeah.
So, Angelo, thank you so much for joining us this week.
Yes, Angelo, thank you for taking all the time out of your clearly ridiculously busy schedule.
All that gaming. Well, thank you guys for having me, turning me on to some great games. Summoner Wars will come back, and on behalf of the gaming community, thank you for the podcast and the over 400 counting lost chapters in there, 430 hours of gaming goodness that you've brought the community over the last few years.
We don't like to do the math.
Yeah, it's fun.
You're too kind. And thank you for giving gamers a great value at La Quinta with the D6G savings code. We really appreciate that, too.
Keep coming. We love your business. It buys me games.
All right. All right, Angelo, take care and have a great... We'll see you at Adepticon.
All right,
yes, we will. That'll be cool. Bye. This Jever Notice is brought to you by the Nerd Herders Podcast. Comics, games, movies, TV, and all things geeky. Check out Nerd Herders, a podcast by friends of the D6G, Matt, Dave, and Ian. Find it on iTunes or nerdherderspodcast.com. That's right, that would be Ian the Necro Gamer, Matt the Epic Champion, and Dave the... Well, we're still trying to keep our PG-13 rating, so... And Dave. Just kidding, guys. These are really good friends of ours that have been around a long, long time, and apparently we make this look easy. Their podcast is a really neat discussion, usually about several different topics of geekly concern or interest. I just finished episode 2, in which I found out my friends were playing the Savage Worlds campaign setting Necessary Evil without me. Thanks, guys. But seriously, they also talked about their favorite books into movies, and there are a bunch of movies that I never knew were books first. So I found that both interesting and enlightening. So go ahead and check them out at nerdherderspodcast.com. Don't just Google Nerd Herders, though, because then you're going to get all kinds of Chuck stuff. And I'm a big fan of Chuck, but it made finding this stuff difficult. Anyway, did you ever notice how annoying some people can be? Any similarity between today's topic and today's shout-out sponsor is strictly coincidental. Seriously. This is something I've spoken about before, but I'm going to hit on it again here because, well, darn it, I'm annoyed again. So, many episodes ago, I did a Jever Notice on the 3 taboo subjects of conversation in polite company: religion, politics, and sex. Well, this last trip to New Zealand and Australia, I was struck rather forcefully by 2 of these 3 points and a stark contrast between some of the folks I was traveling with and some of the folks we met along the way. So think of this as a bit of a cautionary tale, a rewind, if you will, because I'm really, really annoyed. And it's not polite to annoy people. First, let's go with sex, as that's the chronological order of events. A. Don't talk about sex with people you hardly know. This goes for gamers and non-gamers alike. No one who doesn't know you cares about your exploits, your problems, or your thoughts on this matter. Seriously, no matter how important or interesting you think it is, no healthy person who doesn't know you is going to care. And most of the healthy people you do know won't care either, but at that point, it's up to them whether or not they're going to humor you. See, there was this one person who was traveling, and nice person, seriously, actually very nice person, but man, the language. In one restaurant, it was F-bomb this, F-bomb that, F-bomb the other thing. He was distributing bunker busters left and right in his own little mini campaign of shock and awful, making wildly inappropriate comments about waitresses, bartenders, and other folks in the restaurant in full voice. It resulted in one of those really awkward moments where you start looking apologetically at strangers around you in the hopes of disassociating yourself with a person you are clearly associated with in some way. Now, things calmed down after that, so I think someone with a little more patience may have said something, but the main lesson here for me was that you have got to be careful unless you don't care what kind of first impression you're going to make. You come across as classless, annoying, and obnoxious when you act like that, no matter how cool you think you are. So try to temper that kind of impulse when not surrounded by like-minded buddies. Or someone like me will overhear you and write an editorial about you for some podcast. The second no-no that I observed was actually more experienced, and that's political discussion. Now, we're not talking about reasoned discourse here, or talk about differing governmental structures or political philosophies. No, we're talking about denigrating and insulting banter against a faction you apparently assume isn't present, without clearly doing any sort of due diligence to first ascertain if, in fact, said faction is not present. Apparently, another of the adults on the tour had discovered a political fellow traveler in the group, and on several occasions, these two, and maybe a couple others, waxed what I'm sure they thought of as witty and intellectual at the expense of the political viewpoint I can only hope they thought was unrepresented on the bus. I mean, let's say the two sides of the conflict were yellow and green, and they were yellow through and through, and figured none of those stupid greenies were going to be on the bus. So on a daily basis, we were treated to, wow, did you see what those greenies did back home yesterday? Man, what a bunch of idiots. Who would ever want to be a greenie? You'd have to be brain dead. Now, speaking as a greenie, that really annoyed me. I have several very good friends on either side of the deepening political divide in America, and we don't usually talk politics in mixed groups, but when we do, it's very respectful. I know my friends I disagree with are still coming from a good place. We all want what's best for our country and the world, despite having differing views perhaps on how to get there. But those folks on the other side who believe that their ideological opponents are either stupid, what the extremists on one side think, or downright evil, what the extremists on the other side think, I have no desire to talk to a person like that about politics at all. It's just uncomfortable. So the takeaway here, don't talk about politics in that kind of manner, if you have to at all, in a group where even one person is an unknown quantity to you. It's rude, obnoxious, and in the end, fatal to a person's image of you. I have several colleagues who have made this mistake with me over the years, and believe me, I remember every one of them, and I think very much less of them because of those moments. I mean, I know most folks aren't as judgmental as I am, but why take a chance? Now, in contrast, first there was Greg, our tour guide in Sydney. He was awesome. Really funny, extremely knowledgeable, and he didn't take anything seriously. The socially inappropriate traveler tried on several different occasions to fluster him with off-color comments and questions. And Greg was very calm and reasonable in his responses, and you had to start paying very close attention to everything he said and the way he was saying it to understand that he was making good-natured fun of the guy all the time from that first day on. Very classy, very understated, but by the end of our time in Australia, he had called into question just about everything that guy probably gauged his own manhood on, and it was hilarious to listen to. On the political front, my boss, and one of my closest friends, thankfully, and I took an afternoon in Sydney to go hunting down one of the city's most famous pubs, the Hero of Waterloo, or the Hero of Waterloo, as they say down under. While we were there, we ended up spending 3 hours talking to 3 locals right out of Hollywood Central Casting for Australian locals. It was great. Diesel, seriously, that's what they called him, James and Frank. And man, they were characters. At one point, one of them, completely in character, asked us a question about U.S. politics that gave us pause. My boss, after a moment, mentioned that he and I were on opposite ends of that particular question. See, I told you I had friends on both sides. Frank, I think it was him, immediately said, "Oh, no worries, plenty of other things we can talk about." And that was classy. Now, we went on to actually answer their question and have a conversation because my boss is one of those folks I mentioned who I can talk with these things about, and neither of us gets judgmental or dismissive of the other. And we had a great conversation with these Australians, not the least reason being that they agreed with me. And that afternoon was seriously one of my favorite of the whole trip. So, in summation, sex or demeaning language in any way, not unless you know everyone in earshot. Some guy is going to judge you on your vocabulary or your oversharing of your intimate thoughts, and it'll probably be me. And politics? Do not judge lest ye be judged. As I always tell my students, even if you don't understand something, the worst thing you can do is judge it harshly and loudly because you don't understand it. Everyone around you who thinks it's easy to understand, again, is going to judge you. And again, it's probably going to be me. Man, I'm going to have to start thinking about doing a Jever notice on not judging people. Anyway, now, before I go, I know I promised way back in Achievements that I'd mention John Carter of Mars, and then I got sidetracked with Russ's vehemence regarding Under the Dome. Well, without spoiling anything, just really quickly, I really liked it. It's not going to win any awards for writing and probably not for acting either, honestly, but it was very entertaining. It was kind of like Avatar, if the self-loathing hero actually made a journey of self-discovery and found something within himself worth fighting for. But I've bashed on Avatar enough lately, or what I now like to call Pocahontas Dances with Ferngully in 3D. And a quick last-minute shout-out to our partners already stepping up for our Adepticon board game night. Steven at Stronghold Games, we already mentioned, and now Kurt Covert at Smirk and Dagger got back to me, and he's all in, he's all excited. Dan through Game Salute is all excited. So that's the big 3 from last year, and we had an awesome event with just their help. So this year, it's going to be even better. Thanks, guys. We literally could not have done this without you. We're also going for a couple more this year. Credit where credit is due, though, and these three guys stepped out without hesitation and with big, huge, helpful smiles on their faces. At least that's how I read their emails anyway. Well, that's about all I've got about this time around. Thanks for listening, and good night.
Achievement unlocked! You've made it to the end of another D6 Generation episode, the podcast whose humor has universally been acclaimed as not too horrible. Please let us know what you thought of the show by either emailing us at info@the d6generation.com or by posting in our official D6G episode thread at the top of the DACA discussions forum on DACA.com. If for some inexplicable reason you actually enjoyed this show, you can help others find out about it by leaving positive reviews on iTunes. See you in 2 weeks. Thanks for listening, and happy gaming.
The theme from Total Fangirl comes from the soundtrack of The Last Night on Earth, the zombie game, courtesy of Flying Frog Productions, and is a composition of Mary Beth Magalanes.
You build up your tribesmen. I don't quite understand it, but I got to admit I'm interested to try it.
How can cavemen be bad?
The tech tree has speech in it.
Speech. Fire and wheel good.
I'm blown away. That really is. To
be honest,
I can't wait till you guys do your year recap over your reviews and get to discuss that one.
I have to admit that sounds more intriguing to me than Agricola. To be honest with you.
Yeah, I guess they're getting
Agricola or Power Grid?
There's both. They're both coming.
Which one's the cowboy one? I mean, the caveman one.
That's Power Grid. It's called the First Spark, and it's got caveman meeples and like a little tar pit with a mastodon in it, the little tech tree. and then Agricola is you go to the Netherlands for cheese and turnips.
Oh, jeez.
and apparently it was made for the 2012, the 2011 Agricola World Championship in Vienna. I didn't get an invite. I don't understand how they're having this event.
Wow.
That's there. Whoa.
Are there tulips?
There must be tulips.
Let's see. That's what it says. Yeah, windmills, cheese, and tulips. That's what it says.
And wooden shoes. The commodity options are endless.